Yeah, that shit is crazy. What up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Painting with the Prince. You know it, Puff. These guys. Why y'all be up so early? That's what I want to know. Damn. Take your ass back to sleep, man. Puff don't never sleep. Art don't never sleep. How y'all function like that without sleeping? Trap, y'all know I don't barely sleep. We got problems, yo. Insomnia. I think I caught insomnia from one of you guys. I swear. Is insomnia contagious? And then you know who walked in the room? Donald Trump. These sound effects are ridiculous, yo. I know that's right. You know, seem like you live a pretty lavish lifestyle. Gotta go get that bread. I know you're a baller. I wasn't gonna tell nobody else, but yo, Art in the Dark is a baller. Puff too. Puff be driving Lexuses and stuff. Old school Chevys and stuff. Mess around with you baller ass dudes. So I would tell you why I had a doobie in the bathroom, but you probably already know. But you probably already know. Damn. I'm that spoke right next to you, bro. I'm telling you. Just a brick in the wall, man. A cog in the machine, a spoke in the wheel. Y'all just trying to find a way to fucking jump off that shit. You asked how much for a portrait? Did I ask? I never asked how much for a portrait. I mean, do you want to know how much is for a portrait? Teacher, leave them kids alone. You know what I'm saying? Trying to find a way to hop off this motherfucking hamster wheel, yo. Goddamn. That shit gets pretty repetitive. Francos Boo Cock Boo Cockaneer? What? How the hell you say that your last name, yo? I don't speak French. B-O-U's Bo. Near? Kinnear? Buka near. Damn, that shit is weird as shit. No offense. There's something about these papers that these motherfuckers go out like every 5 seconds. Oh my God. Word. A solar eclipse can give out flares big enough for power surges. Hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. I wouldn't mind the power grid going down for a couple hours. You know? Oh my fucking God, bro. Bro, like, what the fuck, dude? Having a nice little window of opportunity. I know, like a couple weeks ago, we had a real bad thunderstorm and like a portion of the city lost all power, yo. Like street lights, everything went out, yo. You know, That shit was crazy. I said, I wonder who doesn't have an alarm on right now since there's no power going anywhere. But then I realized I better not be on that Boys in the Hood shit. Oh, damn it. Hmm. So, like, is is everyone supposed to be able to see that shit, or is it just the northern hemisphere, right? Just people. Yeah, cause I'm not exactly sure who's going to be able to see that shit to start with, though. Mm. Cappuccino. You know I love that cappuccino. I need to work on this for a little minute. Mm. Mm, 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 mm. Yo, is Jay-Z okay? Is Jay-Z gonna put out a video for the entire 444 album? It's like I done seen like 4 or 5 videos off of that shit already. And that shit just dropped like last month, ain't it? I still ain't heard the whole album yet. I'm thinking about subscribing to Tidal just to hear that album. Matter of fact, there was an interview I wanted to listen to because I'm not a Jay-Z fan at all, honestly. I had I had Jay-Z's first album, Reasonable Doubt, and I don't know that it was eh. eh. I was more of a Mobb Deep, Nas fan, Tupac fan, you know. Even on Reasonable Doubt, he had to sample Mobb Deep and Nas. Yeah. So, you know, when oh, I heard about that one too, yo. Yeah, Raekwon put out some new shit. Yeah, but even on Jigga's first album, he was, you know, riding as in Mobb Deep back then. And so that's the only album I ever had, yo. And I've never and what he's got like 12 albums, 13 albums. And all I've ever heard over the years are his hit singles that come out. But somebody said, Jay-Z said step your game up and wear fucking whatever kind of designer clothes. And dudes did that shit, you know. And Jay-Z said, oh well, be on your grown man shit and wear button ups and suits, and motherfuckers did that shit. Now he's saying, oh, invest your money in business and be your own businessman. And now hopefully people will do that shit. That's the only thing I say about Jay-Z though, and that's one of my biggest gripes with him is throughout the years he has, maintained a very high prominence in the hip hop rap community. He's achieved a level of success that very, very few entertainers have have ever achieved, and he's amounted, a great wealth, and I can respect all of that shit. But having such a platform and such a voice and such uh, a loyal fan base, like you could have been putting out music like this throughout the years. It took you how many albums for you finally just drop some shit like this? Like, come on, dude. Like, and then it's like, what he said. I want to rhyme like Common Sense, and lyrically, I wish I was Talib Kweli. Like, then you could have been doing that, but you was chasing that bread too much, okay? And now you got all this fucking money and shit sitting in the fucking ivory tower. Now you want to tell motherfuckers some shit. Like, come on, man. I don't know. I know you had the Blueprint album. Was the Blueprint really a blueprint to get out the fucking hood? Was it really a blueprint? I don't know. I've never listened to it, but I can't imagine that it was. Because it wasn't as controversial as this album is. And so I seen this one interview that it was titled "Why the Jews Really Hate Jay-Z," and I'm like, what? I was gonna listen to it right then when I saw it, and I was like, yeah, this might be some bullshit. But then the more I think about it, it's like his streaming service. Well, he's partnered with Sprint, if I'm not mistaken. But whatever kind of deal him and Sprint has, he still is like, you know, has more say so in that title shit than they do. Which means he's moving away from major labels for distribution. Let's see if I can find this interview. Let's see. Oh well, this is a different. Well, this is the first one I seen Vlad TV with Dame Dash, and I was like, well, Dame Dash and Hove don't even. Do they still fuck with each other like that? I thought they had a bad breakup, you know. But here's another one with my man's Dr. Boyce Watkins said something about this too, though. Let's see. Let's see what Dr. Boyce Watkins says.
Hey, what's going on? Dr. Boyce Watkins, Black Business School. I was doing a video earlier. My Wi-Fi
disconnected. Ready to pair. Connected to headphone.
Jay-Z. As you know, Jay-Z put out that song, or I guess the album's called 444. I don't know if it's the album or the song, but he has one song where he talks about, do you know why Jewish people own all the property in America? And then that's when he goes into talking about wealth building and, throwing away your money in the strip club and why that is not a smart economic decision and why investing is the best way to go. And of course, I'm excited about that because, my PhD's in finance, and that's the thing. That's what I talk about. That's my thing. And I just love, I love when hip hop artists kind of get that message because, the very same that led to those record labels and movie studios to have the power to create brands and to change minds and push music around the world. That comes from understanding wealth building. Hold on to your money and position your money so your money can grow. So I love the way Jay was kind of breaking it down. I think it was great. And what he's really saying in the song is you want to think like an investor. People who think like investors get ahead in the world. People who throw their money away or do not get ahead. So never ever think that a guy is cool or intelligent because he brags about how much money he spent at the club or how much money he threw away. Like, I feel like I might give away $1 million, or whatever, that song. That's not really something to brag about. It makes you look silly. It makes you look like an economic whore, because you're taking what's valuable and you're giving it away cheap. And then other people are taking what you gave away and they're doing more with it. They're taking care of their family, and you can't take care of your family now because you gave everything that you had away to the next man. That doesn't make any sense. So anyway, in this song, I couldn't help but notice that now online there's sort of a conversation or debate as to whether or not Jay-Z was anti-Semitic, because he started the song with the lyric, do you know why Jewish people have own all the property in America? There's nothing wrong with what he said. It'd be different if he said, do you know why Jewish people have big noses and stink or something? If he said something like that, that's a problem. But he gave a very positive stereotype, which says that their community is a community to be envied. They're a community to be looked at in a specific way when it comes to money, because they know how to get money, how to keep money, how to grow money. So there's nothing wrong with what he said. But I'm seeing a lot of people are trying to accuse him of being anti-Semitic. Now, here's where that's a problem. Not only is it a problem because it wasn't a bad stereotype. What he said was fine. But it's also a problem because, wait a minute. Isn't it all those Jewish record label executives who run the music industry and the entertainment industry where they're constantly portraying black men as thugs and killers and gangsters? Isn't there a substantial ownership of these record labels that push out music, promoting artists who refer to black people as niggers on a regular basis? How often do y'all get offended about that? How often? Because it'd be different if you're getting offended about something you can't control, but you could turn the faucet off. If you really had integrity about yourself, then you would say, no, we don't want people to refer to us in a derogatory way. So by God, we'll never support someone from our community doing that to somebody else. But you don't do that. You don't do that. I've never heard the Anti-Defense League take on another Jewish-owned corporation to protect the integrity of black people. Aren't you also the ones who own a substantial percentage of the record labels that have consistently promoted black genocide? You don't think the Biggie Pac whole debacle could have been prevented had record labels intervened and not just looked at the money instead of thinking about the lives of these young black men? The media played a role. The Jews own a lot of the media. They own a substantial percentage of the media. That's not a stereotype. That is a fact. They have tremendous influence on the media. The media is what killed Tupac Shakur. The media is what heightened that beef to the point where we got black men getting their heads blown off because y'all trying to sell records, y'all trying to make $1. So don't start that fight. Do not start that fight, because you're going to lose that one. You will lose the battle of integrity, because what Jay-Z said in that song doesn't come anywhere near the tremendous amount of damage and destruction and the number of atrocities that have occurred in the black community because you made money selling poison at our expense. So this is not anti-Jewish. This is just pro-truth. And that's it. That's all I got to say about that. I'm about to get out of here. If you want a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, go to drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. Don't forget the All Black National Convention takes place September 29th through October 1st in Louisville, Kentucky at Simmons College of Kentucky, the 107th HBCU in America. I hope that you'll go out there and be a part of it. It's going to be amazing. You can buy your tickets at allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. I got to go, guys. Talk to you soon. Congratulations, Jay-Z. You did a great job, brother. I mean, just so y'all know, I've critiqued Jay-Z heavily in the past, but you got to give credit where it's due. He delivered on this, and I respect him for it. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Peace.
They got Dr. Umar Johnson on live.
Recently, I had Mark Lamont Hill
from Philadelphia as myself.
And he mentioned something that was kind of interesting. He said that after the Emancipation Proclamation, slavery was outlawed except for in prison.
Yes.
And right after that, we had just reported that there was a nationwide prison protest against prison labor, where, and I talked to a couple people that have been to prison who had been there for a number of years, and they were saying how they get like 17 cents an hour working, how like after 3 years they made like $340 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about that?
First of all, he's absolutely correct. The 13th Amendment outlawed slavery by the individual, but then it inlawed slavery by the state. And it validated reincarceration through mass incarceration. So what they did was they said, okay, we got 4 million blacks who are about to be free. 4 million. Jobless. We freed them, but we gave them no opportunity, which means they still dependent on us to just transform the system. So if we're not going to give them a job, that means these black men and women have to do what? They have to break the law to feed their family. So what they did to create this mass incarceration system, which was designed to do what? Remove blacks from the functioning society. Get them out the way. So they don't threaten anything we're trying to do. So what did they do? They upgraded petty crimes and made them felonies. If you didn't have a job, you go to jail. If you didn't have a home, you go to jail. You out past curfew, you go to jail. You don't have ID, you go to jail. I mean, any little petty offense could put you in prison for years. This was done intentionally. Why? Because the former plantation owners needed workers and they didn't want to pay for them. So what's the cheapest form of labor? Mass incarcerate the ex-slave and then force him out, hire him out, contract him out onto the chain gang. Same thing they're doing today. You see, this was done by design. At the end of the Civil War, there was no large-scale federal prison system. You didn't have the sophisticated statewide prison networks you have today. That came post-13th Amendment, post-1865, to make sure we had a Negro removal program that took ex-slaves out of society and put them back on the chain gangs. And you still have chain gangs today. Angola prison down in Louisiana, I believe it is. They still have brothers out picking cotton and other crops with a white man on horseback with a rifle. No different than an overseer 150 years ago. And someone just sent me live pictures from it. Looks just like a scene from the 1760s, but it was in 2015. So slavery hasn't went anywhere, okay? And all of this, again, was by design, okay? The black man is not born a criminal. The black man is made a criminal. Ironically, who sold the drugs in America back in the 1920s? Who ran the gangs in America back in the 1920s? Who sold the dope and ran the booze? Irish gangsters, Jewish gangsters, Italian gangsters. Why did they do it? Because they were not considered white people until 1940. So they broke the rules to feed their family. But nobody said they was born to be criminals. When all of a sudden 1940 comes, they're upgraded to white status. So we're going to give the Irish the police department and the Italians the fire department, and the European Jews, the civil service jobs in every major city government, which they still own and control to this day. And all we want to do is push the black males into the criminal underworld that was formerly occupied by the European gangs. Criminals are made.
Well, it's interesting because when we put this article up, this huge debate just broke out where it's like, well, they're criminals, they deserve to to be there, and they deserve to have to do this labor. And it's like, well, they're already in prison. You're already being punished by being put in a cage. And as someone, I've never done any real jail time, but I did a weekend here and there for just petty stuff. So being in a cage is a pretty severe punishment in and of itself. But as an employer, I really don't understand why I have to pay my employees a certain amount of money based on their skills, whereas the prison can just put all these men to work, profit from it, and only pay them 17 cents an hour. Like, why not, for example, pay them a proper wage, but a certain percentage of the wage goes to the victims? That's something that I'd be completely for.
But here's the thing. Most of them are not in prison for violent crime. Most black men in jail in America are in prison for non-violent, drug-related offenses. Most of them are not. Most criminals are not there for violent crimes. And crime is a function of the state. Whatever behavior the state considers to be a threat to its monopoly of domination is automatically criminalized. What's going on in America now? The decriminalization of marijuana. But I haven't heard no person yet argue that reparations is owed to all Americans alive or their descendants if they're no longer alive, if they were formerly incarcerated for marijuana use. How can marijuana be acceptable all of a sudden? But you put thousands of people in jail for smoking it, possession, distribution, and now it's legal. Same thing with alcohol during the prohibition. It'll send you to jail then, but it's legal today. So is crime really about what's right and wrong? That's the question. Is crime about what is right or what is wrong? Or is crime simply the mask that we use to hide the government's agenda to get rid of certain populations?
Yeah, no, I feel you. What's your take on Kaepernick? And
I love it. Shout out
the
to
whole
Kaepernick.
situation with athletes protesting.
I love what he did, but it would have been so much stronger if the whole team would have done it. We haven't had a major black athlete take a stand like that since the brothers put the fist up at the Olympics, since the days of Muhammad Ali. You don't see that type of bold, unapologetic, alpha male black man behavior from our athletes. Most of them, as physically imposing as they are extremely docile. Michael Jordan, for example. Michael Jordan, when the young brothers was killing each other in the streets over Michael Jordan sneakers, he didn't say a word. Michael Jordan was the prototype of the modern day athlete. He was Joe Louis on steroids. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I have no social responsibility to people who look like me whatsoever. And then to prove y'all I don't have no social responsibility to people who look like me, once I divorced my first wife, who was black, I'm going to marry a young white one. So you can clearly see what Michael Jordan's mindset is. But what Colin did was right. It was powerful. I stand by him. I can't wait to get one of his jerseys. He may suffer because of it. But his self-respect and the respect he's going to get from a lot of us on the bottom is going to go through the roof because he took a stand. I didn't stand up for the Star Spangled Banner. Do you know what that flag represents to black people? Would you ever ask a European Jew to stand up for the singing of the Nazi national anthem? So if a European Jew don't have to stand for Hitler's anthem, no black person should have to stand for the national anthem or the Star Spangled Banner. When I went to Scotland School, which was a preparatory military academy, they wanted to throw me out because I didn't pledge the flag. But when they contacted the state said that the federal courts have already decided on this. You cannot make a child say the Pledge of Allegiance in school. So they wanted to throw me out, but they could not do that. So I appreciate what he did, but here's the thing that needs to be understood. All progress and all change is made in a group. The individuals might spark the change, but it is the group that ultimately realizes it.
Now, yeah, hey, this is real talk now. I did the same shit as a young boy, yo. And it just because, I don't know where I get my fucking rebel spirit from. I honestly don't, because I don't see it a lot in my family members. But I've always been like, extra defiant. I swear to God, yeah. And then probably like fifth grade, like I stopped, like, swear to God, I stopped standing for the pledge. And it was just because, I don't know, this routine of everybody doing the same thing. And I was like, screw this shit. And then, like, a while ago, I seen this experiment where it was a social experiment where it's a doctor's office waiting room. And there's several people in there waiting to see the doctor. And they're all a part of it. And you have just one control individual who's not a part of the experiment. And so everyone's in a waiting room, and there's a little buzzer that goes off. And when the buzzer goes off, everybody stands. And they stand for a little minute, and then they, like a few seconds, and then sit back down. And then the control subject is like puzzled, like, what the fuck are they doing? And the buzzer goes off again, and everybody stands, and everyone sits down. And the control subject is getting kind of more confused and antsy a little bit. And so by the third time the buzzer goes off, the control patient stands with the group. Nobody told him to, was never directed to, just by being in the situation, in the room, and visually observing everyone else standing at the tone of the buzzer, then they felt compelled for whatever reason to, integrate with that group and stand and do the exact same thing that everyone else is doing. And why do people do that? I don't fucking know. And at an early age, I never really liked that shit. I never liked that shit. And I stopped standing for the fucking pledge. You're like, screw this. Y'all can all do the same fucking thing. I'm not doing it. And, not realizing that, being able to comprehend the exact implications of the words and the message within the Pledge of Allegiance. But, I don't know, just not wanting to conform to what everybody else was doing. It was like, something. I don't have boogers, yo. It's just my nose hairs are growing. Look, I'm getting old, man. I feel like an old man. Like, I need to shave my nose hairs. That shit is ridiculous. Oh, and then the phone turned off. Hold up, guys. I'll be right back. I might even go fix me some more coffee. Vlad TV.
What if all black athletes did that? That's what we need. We need mass direct action. Dr. King, Marcus Garvey, mass direct action. What he did was right, but it would have been better if the other brothers would have stood with him.
Well, you are seeing more athletes now. There's been more and more athletes who are not standing, that are raising their fists and so forth. One of the things that just happened though was the Seattle Seahawks announced that they would stand with their arms interlocked during the national anthem. And one of a woman who had been on our show recently, Miko Grimes, who's the wife of an NFL player, she called them a bunch of pussies for doing that.
The players.
Called the players. Called the whole team.
Is she black or white? What, is she black or white?
She's black.
She's black. Well, she, and I don't know the sister, but for her to chastise brothers who take a stand against white supremacy means she's an agent of that white supremacy. See, one thing you got to understand about
she's criticizing them because, as opposed to not standing, they're all standing but with their arms that are locked.
Oh, as opposed to taking the seat. Right. I understand. Here's what I would say to that. I understand where she's coming from. Yeah. But something is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. You got to start somewhere. Anytime an athlete shows any type of social consciousness towards their people, I have to commend them. They might not have the courage of a Kaepernick. They might not have the political influence either because he's a superstar. You understand? Some of these brothers who interlock their arms, they might not be a superstar. Colin Kaepernick is pretty much indispensable, so to speak. He's one of the top 25 athletes, in the world, I would say. So he has some leverage. LeBron, if he did something like that, he could do that. LeBron is indispensable to the NBA's pocketbook. Okay, Colin Kaepernick is indispensable to the 49ers pocketbook, but some of these other guys may not be. So we have to make sure we're not too quick to judge, because when you criticize and attempt to do something right, then you reduce the likelihood that they will ever try anything again. It's like when people ask me about the Black Lives Matter movement. Say, they running around and they disrupting political meetings. I might not agree with everything they do, but I can respect that they're trying to do something. I might not agree with it, but because the effort is there to make a difference, I got to respect it. I'm not going to sit there and criticize every little thing and why they didn't do it this way. They are trying. And it's been 50 years since we've seen black college students get involved in any serious social protest. The last time we seen this was the sit-ins, the Freedom Rides, Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown. We haven't seen the level of social consciousness on the university campus that we see today. So I have to respect it and withhold the criticism.
Well, what's interesting about the Kaepernick situation, and we had posted a story about this also. There was a story written on the Bleacher Report where it was anonymous sources, but they had spoken to a bunch of the executives in the front office of the 49ers, and they basically, their take was, fuck this guy, he'll never work again, his career is over, and so forth. And there was an interview recently with Harry Belafonte where they brought that to his attention. And what he said was kind of interesting. He said that to mute the slave is always the goal of the slave owner.
Oh, without question, because revolution is contagious. The 99th monkey experiment. It only takes 1% of a population committed to what they're trying to do to influence the other 99%. And they understand. You have to realize, the American sports enterprise, which is one of its top exports, black music is America's second largest export. Black music and black athletics is at the foundation of American corporate power. So they have to be very careful about how they let athletes and entertainers express themselves, because they could trigger revolution. If Jay-Z wanted to, he could probably do more today than a Dr. King and a Malcolm did 40 years ago. Why? Because he has the position, the influence, and most of all the money. Malcolm had to get his money. King had to get his money. The Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey had to get his money. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had to get his money. Jay got his money. If him and Beyonce wanted to, they could start a revolution. The question becomes, and I'm not singling them out, I'm just bringing them up because they're prominent. Any name could be used in their place. Are you willing to pay the sacrifice that must be paid in order to push Black America forward? Anyone who has helped push us forward had to pay a sacrifice, whether it was jail, whether it was reputation, whether it was employment, whether it was their lives. But freedom is not free. It cannot be voted away. It cannot be prayed away. It cannot be negotiated away. Okay? It has to be fought. And not just physically. Economics is a form of war. Propaganda is a form of war. Finance is a form of war. But many of our athletes and entertainers are so comfortable, they're not willing to risk that. See, 50 years ago, the athletes and entertainers didn't live much better than the regular black folks. They had a status that was great, but they didn't have the financial elitism of today. Today's black athlete and entertainer has millions of dollars that many of them don't want to liquidate. It's like when people ask me, why haven't I been on Oprah Winfrey's show yet? You're the top black school psychologist in America, hands down, okay? You've never been on Oprah Winfrey's show, but she made Dr. Phil a millionaire. She's not going to bring me on her show because Oprah Winfrey, and I'm not attacking her, I actually applaud her success, but she made her success by pleasing and accommodating white females. That's her predominantly viewing audience. She's not going to bring Dr. Umar Johnson on her couch. So I can say publicly that the reason black boys are not learning in school is because middle-class white female teachers are racist and don't care about their best interests. She don't want me saying that on the show. Okay? People are afraid of the truth, and they will muffle it. That's why whenever there's conversations about Black America, who do you see? No disrespect to none of them, by the way. Mark Lamont Hill, Tavis Smiley, Cornel West. Why Dr. Umar Johnson not in those conversations? especially when you're dealing with mental health and education. My expertise far exceeds any of them in those areas. But you don't get me there. You know why? Because they know that their responses are going to be somewhat tempered. My response is going to be the brutal truth. It won't be disrespectful, but it will be honest. You can't put me on CNN with Anderson Cooper and tell it like it is, because it'll wake black folks up. So they know who to use and who to not use. The black bourgeoisie has been meticulously created by the power structure to control black advancement. They can allow Umar Johnson on those airways.
Dr. Umar. Yeah, I met my man one time, yo. And I bumped into him in Philly, yo.
You can buy a new car or make yours run like new.
A nigga like me, man, I love the game. I love the hustle, man. Be feeling like one of the ball playing niggas, you know, with Bird, Magic, or something. Yeah, you know a nigga got dope. A nigga could leave the league. But if I leave, fans still gonna love me, man? I get love out here in Harlem, man.
What?
I done sold coke on these streets, man. Hash, weed, heroin. As long as niggas is feeling it, a nigga like me can hustle it. That's my gift in life, Daddy. You know? What? The fuck you laughing at, B?
You, man. Funny, man. You a hustling motherfucker, man. For real, baby. Fucking killing me, man.
Well, you know me, baby.
Okay, people. Here's another one. I got a little video I'm gonna put out for you right quick. This is about the Jews. If you haven't heard or if you're not familiar with it, been living under a rock lately. Jay-Z dropped his 444 album, whatever. And on that album, he really was going in on black economic empowerment. I mean, he was really pushing the whole black wealth, mantra to a lot of people, to blacks. My favorite song on the album is The Story of OJ. If you know my channel, you know what I'm about. So off the top, you know why I chose that as my favorite song. I mean, he made great points on that, Story of OJ song, talking about, you gonna die over the neighborhood your mom's renting, you don't even own it. He talked about, taking your money and investing, not buying cars. He's saying he could have bought some property when it was $2 million, now it's worth $25 million. He feels dumb, feels like Dumbo. But the crux of this video is really me dealing with his comments about Jews. And he only made one comment in the line. It was basically, you want to know why Jews own all the property, these people. He was saying, pay attention, basically, look at what I'm saying. And it really pissed off the Jews, which I don't get. If you're not familiar with it, 48% of the billionaires in the country or in the world, I have to read the article, I didn't read it, but are Jewish, man. 48%, they make up 2% of the population. 48% of the American billionaires. Okay? So I don't want to hear this about, you ever wonder why they own this and own that. They only make up 2% and 48% of the billionaires? They make up 2% of the population? You see what I'm saying? I'm sorry. He said, you ever wonder why Jewish people own all the property in America? This is how they did it. And he's just talking about investing. Who runs the music industry? Jews. Who runs banking? Jews. Who runs the porn industry? Jews. Who runs Hollywood? Jews. So as far as I'm concerned, fuck them. Excuse my French. Fuck them. I really could care less about their feelings. I could care less about them getting upset.
Is
See,
it-
let me tell
I
you something.
mean-
They're really not upset with Jay-Z.
Was it that bad? Is like I don't who were all these Jewish people who are upset about Jay-Z? I really don't get it. Like that really pissed who off? Who are these mysterious Jews he's talking about who are so upset because Jay-Z said they own all the property in America or whatever. I don't know. Seems like getting blown out of proportion a little bit. I don't think Jay-Z's gonna be assassinated over some comments in the rap lyric. You know, he'll be alright. It's not like he's Kennedy. This dude said, the Jews are upset. Whoa, buddy. I didn't realize that statistic though. 40-something% of the billionaires. Pretty interesting. 42% of the billionaires, he said? Really? Really? The Game exposed Jay-Z and Master P. I don't know. Some of this stuff is kind of hard to listen to sometimes. Oh man, that's good. So, Joe Rogan, what are the biggest discoveries of 2017?
Buy one, take one is back, starting at $12.99 at Olive Garden. Come in for a fan favorite like
Yeah, how about I don't go to Olive Garden?
What has occurred new? What discoveries have been discovered in the last year? Like what is new that we can look at?
In terms of archaeology, there's not much new. Göbekli Tepe at the moment is in deep freeze. It's right 30 miles from the Syrian border. There's been massive unrest in Şanlıurfa, which is the main town. Archaeology is very difficult for them to carry on there. It's basically just frozen.
So they just sort of stopped.
They've just kind of stopped, you know. And in fact, there's an amazing number of these sites. Another site I visited for Magicians of the Gods was Baalbek in the Lebanon. Absolutely stunning site. And again, I'm convinced that site is nuanced. It is, yes, there is a Roman temple there, but they put that temple there because the site was sacred long before, and there's this incredible U-shaped megalithic wall which surrounds Baalbek, which does not appear to have any connection to the Roman structure at all. Again, that's an area which is subject to tremendous unrest and difficulty, and it's difficult for archaeologists to proceed. But just in 2014, they made a huge new discovery at Baalbek of a buried block which weighs 1,460 tons. which was sitting there on the site. They've been working that site for 100 years. They only found it in 2014.
Wow, 1,000 tons. What is
1,460 tons.
Is that 2 million pounds? Is that what that is?
I don't know. Maybe
How does that
Randall's
work?
math is better than mine in converting it into pounds.
1 ton
Well, times
is
2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
2,000 pounds to a ton, to an imperial ton. So whatever had 3 zeros on it, double it and add 3 zeros on it.
It's a horrendous amount of pounds. Put it that way. It's the single largest block of stone ever cut and quarried in the ancient world.
And they found this just in 2014.
They found it in 2014. Now there's another big one right beside it, which has been in plain view for about the last 100 years. And it's astonishing to me that this one, which is just below it, was covered by sediment. That
You have an actual calculator? You might be the only person left.
I never go anywhere without my calculator.
You have a real
Joe.
calculator.
Uh-huh.
Nobody has one of those. We were just talking about that yesterday. They're like, who the fuck
It's
buys
not an
calculators?
iPhone, it's an actual calculator.
I'm the last guy on Earth to carry one of these.
Wow. So Baalbek was also the site of, there's many monoliths that have been discovered there, and it's a really fascinating site that many people have sort of overlooked when you talk about ancient structures from the past.
Absolutely. I have to resist. I've got nothing against aliens, but I don't need aliens to explain these things. I think a much leaner and more elegant explanation for these huge archaeological anomalies is a lost human civilization.
Much better.
And I like that guy for saying that. Now, is he? I'm gonna. I'll just listen a little bit more because I have not heard this interview before, but I heard this guy right here. I've listened to him before. He talked about tripping on DMT and some other stuff, yeah. But dang, I can't remember his name, but I've listened to this dude before. But I just haven't heard this one. And that's the whole thing, because I was really, really, really into that ancient alien, ancient astronaut stuff, trying to figure out, the Anunnaki and the lizard people and all that good stuff. But I was listening to this one dude on House of Consciousness on Sonetta. He was like, "Look, bro, what you saying is, if you really believe in the ancient astronaut theory, you're saying that ancient man was not smart enough to achieve the technical prowess themselves to build such monolithic structures." Think about that now. Because ancient man looked like you and me. So you're saying that our ancestors weren't able to build this shit by themselves and some aliens came down and taught them how to do this shit, right? And I was like, no. But then, like he just said, is more evidence points towards the remnants of a lost civilization. Now, if you want to believe the whole Atlantis theory, and that Atlantis sank beneath the sea, but a few people survived, and I kind of almost believe that too. And the survivors were the ones who made it to sub-Saharan Africa, and finally migrated to northern Africa, and after several generations of holding on to this, the knowledge was even ancient to them at that time, of holding on to that knowledge, started Egypt and moved to South America and did the same thing over there and started all those civilizations as well. It's all the same knowledge from the same place. And that's why so many cities, like literally cities from the ancient world, look very, very similar on different continents. It's weird as shit.
That's been the case that I've been making for 25 years. I think the alien thing is a bit of a distraction. Of course there's aliens, of course the universe is full of life, but the ancient archaeological sites are not good evidence for that idea. They're very, unless you massage the evidence a lot, they're not good evidence. So I think we are dealing with a lost human civilization, and at Baalbek, 20 feet above the ground, we have 3 blocks of stone, joined so closely together that you can't get an edge of a sheet of paper between them. Each one weighs more than 900 tons, and they are 20 feet above the ground. It's a stunning achievement. It's just absolutely astonishing. How on earth did they do that?
And how does mainstream archaeology deal with that?
They say, oh, the Romans built it all.
Ah, the Romans.
Yeah, the Romans did it.
No.
The Romans did do some awesome stuff.
They did do some awesome stuff. They absolutely did. But this site is separate from the Roman site. It surrounds it, but it's not part of it, in my view.
In terms of your question, what's happened within the last year or two, I would think that probably the most significant thing, or certainly right up there, would be the comet research and the discovery. I mean, like this article I have right here, which came out in 2014, so it's not that old. A nano diamond rich layer across.
Hey, have you heard about the new My Sheets Card loyalty program? You can earn points on all purchases made in-store, and rewards are customized based on the stuff you like. So you can earn status to get even more cooler stuff. It's bigger, it's better, it's sheetsier. What's sheetsier? Well, it's like...
Three continents, consistent with major cosmic impact at 12,800 years ago. And it's something like 24, 25 highly pedigreed scientists.
And these are the Comet Research Group. These are the scientists from the Comet Research Group who have funded all their research themselves. They came out with another paper in 2015.
Where was this published, if anybody wants to read this?
That's in the Journal of Geology.
Yeah.
But then there's the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, host a lot of their work as well. And the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences get into trouble for hosting their work, but they feel it's important, so they keep on hosting it.
This is so spectacularly confusing to me, because that's rock solid science.
Yeah.
I mean, this is evidence. This is actually, you can weigh this stuff. You
Yeah.
can measure it. You can run tests on it and find out what its components are. This to me is so baffling.
Yeah, it's very baffling. They brought out another paper in 2015. I won't go into some of the details are boring, but it's called a Bayesian chronological analysis. And basically what they were looking at, they asked themselves, is it possible that this evidence, these nanodiamonds, these melt glass, the carbon spherules, could that have been laid down gradually? And the chronological analysis that they've done absolutely answers that. No, it was not laid down gradually. This whole thing unfolded in a period of about 24 hours.
Whoa, what a night.
Yeah, and what had happened, Joe, was that for years, archaeologists had recognized this black mat layer at about 24 or more of the Clovis sites around North America, which there had been over 50 of them that had been studied. And it was C. Vance Haynes who wrote an interesting paper saying that he was the one who noted that below this black mat layer, which is only 2 to 3 inches thick in most sites, you found evidence of the Clovis culture. You found their tool kits and their spear points and so on. You found evidence of the extinct megafauna, but not above it. You would find this evidence of this cultural activity and the megafauna right up to the bottom of the black mat layer, but not above it. So what finally happened was in 2007, Richard Firestone and Alan West and some of their colleagues, and it was just basically a small group at that point, took a look at this closer look. And that's when they began to discover these impact proxies, usually right at the base of the layer. And the layer itself is carbonaceous, which suggests that there had been a lot of soot deposited, which would imply widespread wildfires. In fact, there was a study right off the coast of California here on the Santa Rosa Islands that pretty much concluded that there was just massive wildfires that pretty much just annihilated everything. And then this was preceded by the deposition of this black mat layer. And right at the bottom of this black mat layer is where you find the nanodiamonds, the magnetic grains, the microspherules, the carbonaceous spherules, fullerenes. You find these impact proxies, and they're not all the same at all the sites. In fact, that's been one of the things that the critics have seized upon. But what they're doing is, I think, taking an oversimplified model. And when you look at a comet fragmentation event, you could be looking at the individual pieces have very different compositions. And what we were talking about earlier, the Taurid meteor stream, I'm not convinced at this point that it was necessarily just a single impact event. It may have been a bombardment episode that may have lasted even several decades. It may have then ceased for a while. And we were talking about this last night over dinner, that there seems to be a second spasm at 11,600 years ago that's also associated with a massive rise in sea level. They call, there's two meltwater spikes, meltwater spike 1A and meltwater spike 1B. I'm quite convinced that these meltwater spikes
What's up with the commercial,
been documented by
listen
marine
to some
geologists and
geologists.
oceanographers are correlated with these melting events of the ice sheet that I've been looking at in terms of their geomorphic consequences. Because some of these events, I mean, the only way I can describe some of these meltwater events is that the only modern analog to this would be a tsunami. And we've seen some pretty devastating tsunamis within the last decade or two, both in Indonesia and in Japan. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of the videos of these tsunamis. Anybody listening, it is definitely worthwhile to go online and look at some of these videos where you can actually see the unbelievably powerful effects of a 30 or 40 or 50 foot tsunami, right? Now, some of the landscapes, and I have some images we can pull up here shortly, are places in Montana, Idaho, Washington, where you literally had a tsunami sweeping over the land that was over 1,000 feet deep.
And that tsunami came off the ice cap. That's not an oceanic tsunami. That's
right. It's a freshwater tsunami. It's meltwater coming off this catastrophic melting of the ice sheet. And I've traced the sources of some of these meltwater. I've made 2 trips now up into the plateau country of British Columbia looking for the source of this meltwater. Because in the conventional models now of this flooding, that goes back to Harlan Bretz, and basically what they've done is they said initially there could have been no flood because Harlan Bretz didn't provide a source for the water. The critics said, well, you're saying that all of this evidence in the landscape is evidence of the flood, but what was the source of the flood? And he didn't have a source. So the critics then said, well, you don't have a source for the flood water, therefore the flood didn't take place. Then as the research evolved, you had independent evidence accumulating in western Montana by J.T. Pardee, who was with the U.S. Geological Survey. And he was investigating evidence that the mountain valleys of western Montana had been filled up with an enormous volume of water. And this volume of water seemed to be exactly the same time as Bretz's floods. He then assumed that this was a giant lake. And because you can see, and we can, I think we have some images, I think Jamie has some images, so we'll pull them up shortly. We're on the mountainside, you see the shorelines etched, 1,000 feet above the valley floor. And what he then decided was that based upon an old 19th century interpretation by T.C. Chamberlain, that there had been an ice dam, he said, well, there must have been an ice dam west of here somewhere in the Clark Fork Valley, a giant lake backed up, burst through the ice dam, and then this is what would have caused Harlan Bretz's floods. So now the geological community is shifting because, number one, the evidence is overwhelming and they can't deny it anymore. But what they're doing is looking for a gradualist or a more uniformitarian explanation. So they immediately latched onto this, well, there was a giant pro-glacial or in front of a glacial lake in western Montana. Well, you're talking about somewhere between 520 and 550 cubic miles of water. That's a lot of water, right? Normally, when you have a large lake, you have a huge catchment basin that is feeding lots of streams and rivers that are feeding into that lake. When you look at any of the big lakes around North America, you have the lake, and then you have this big old catchment basin, and all of that's feeding in. In Lake Missoula, the whole lake fills almost the whole catchment basin. It's like, to me, what they did was they said, okay, we're just going to push the source of the water from here over to here, but let's not go into the question of where did the water come from that's filling these mountain valleys of western Montana. And this is what I spent a couple of weeks in September going up into some of these, following these valleys up into British Columbia. And there's spectacular evidence. And it's almost like the American geologists stop at the 49th parallel and they say, well, that's the Canadians preserve up there. We'll let them, they've got their own theories, we've got ours. Interestingly, the Canadian
have accountability would completely change the Black experience in America. And the fact that as a Black person, you don't expect justice.
What? You don't
are
expect
saying
justice.
That we think that the water for these floods came from up here. But they don't like that because, you see, one of the leading geologists who's saying that these floods came from Canada is John Shaw, who basically came up with this idea that drumlins, which are these inverted boat hull shaped landforms that are found by hundreds of thousands in regions where glaciers were, that they were formed not by the glaciers grinding over the landscape, but they were actually formed by massive subglacial flows of water. And his critics have all been saying, well, here's the problem. What's the source of your water? Therefore, it wasn't water, it wasn't subglacial floods. It parallels Harlan Brett's story very closely. Well, here's the thing. Shaw and his colleagues couldn't really come up with a plausible explanation for how you could form these massive subglacial reservoirs. In fact, what they call the Livingstone Lake event required 84,000 cubic kilometers of water. And 84,000 kilometers, I can do it really quickly here. We divide that by 36. That's about 2,300 cubic miles of water. That's more than all of the Great Lakes combined. Vastly bigger than all of the Great Lakes combined. It's probably every lake in North America combined. And he said this one event required over 2,000 cubic miles of water. Well, where did that water come from? So he basically said, well, there must have been a reservoir somehow that formed. His critics have said, that's impossible. You couldn't form that much water under the ice sheet. Well, what's happened now is the idea of a major cosmic impact into the ice sheet has completely obviated the need for a subglacial reservoir, because now we have a way of instantaneously melting enormous volumes of ice.
It's no longer a mystery where the water came from. It's fully explained, and this has been the missing piece of the puzzle until the Comet Research Group began to identify this evidence.
This beer is true to its roots. Brewed only in Golden, Colorado, and nowhere else, ever. Coors Banquet. That's how it's done.
Wow, that's a big statement. This whole thing is so mind-blowing, and as mind-blowing as your first appearance, this chart especially is really freaking me out. Like looking at the mortality of all the animals, the mass extinction event that must have taken place. One of the things that always bothered me about that idea that human beings killed off the woolly mammoths is that they found these vast fields of uneaten mammoths where there was thousands of them that had died almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
Which is just, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what did they do? They went on a mass killing orgy of slaughter and then just decided not to eat any of them?
Well, you know, the field evidence itself is inconsistent with that idea. Right here, this is an example. This is one of the many mammoth cemeteries. And what happens is that you can see here that you can see from these shorelines, see that there was a flood. The river rose up to this level, and then when it rose down, it left this in its wake. And what you see here, like this is bone counting at the Berlik Mammoth Cemetery in northern Yakutia, Siberia. Identical deposits are found throughout the Taymyr Peninsula. And what we see here is these massive bone deposits that have been showing up for the last couple of hundred years. Every time that there's, you know, a thawing or a flood, or these things are washed up on the shore of the Arctic Ocean, you know, what we see is that there were huge herds of woolly mammoths grazing, where now the plant material is only 2 inches high. So clearly, it was a completely different climate there. You know, what's interesting is that you had in Siberia able to support herds of woolly mammoths at the same time that half of North America is buried under 2 miles or more of ice.
How is that possible? Just a totally different atmosphere.
I'm still puzzling over that. I have some ideas, but you know, until I can test these ideas a little further, I'm.
So without ice core samples, is it impossible to figure out what the temperature was in Siberia at that time?
No, they can figure out basically based upon fossil plant remains.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that in some cases the tree line was hundreds of miles further north than it is now. And that's clearly, if you've got trees, forests growing now where, you know, 13 or 14 or 15,000 years ago it was permafrost, you know it was warmer, clearly.
So there's still, whoa, what is that? 19th century scene showing ivory floor of the London docks covered by thousands of mammoth tusks from Siberia. This is a drawing, obviously.
Yeah.
Predates photographs.
Yeah. For hundreds of years, thousands of mammoths, entombed mammoths, and mammoth tusks were being exhumed from the Siberian permafrost. Thousands and thousands and thousands of these. And basically, to me, you look at this is just in-your-face evidence that this was not humans doing this. You know, it was not humans that were slaughtering these mammoths and burying their remains.
It's the instantaneous nature would almost be like people had figured out some new thing, like they figured out some like a doom gun, you know, they shot the whole
the doom gun. Well, look at the near extinction of American bison. What brought that about? Trains and high-powered rifles, right? It was a major technological advancement that was able to bring about the near extermination of the American bison.
There's actually a guy that I'm going to bring on the podcast soon to discuss that. His name is Dan Flores, who a big chunk of his intellectual career studying this. And what he believes is that the bison had a massive population jump that was directly correlating to smallpox epidemic on the Native American people. And that when the United States, when we look at the United States history, the big stacks of woolly mammoths, the big stacks of bison skulls we always look to, like that was a very unusual population of bison that existed because the Plains Indians had experienced this massive extinction event. And then when they had incorporated the horse, like the horse and apparently the American Indians, Native Americans rather, were on their way to extirpating the bison even before we came along. But then they died off in this massive death scenario with the smallpox and all the different diseases that the Europeans had brought over here. And then the mammoth population, the bison population had grown like almost unnaturally. It had been much larger than it had ever been in the past. And that's when the United States was established, and that's when all the Western European immigrants had come along and started killing off all these bisons. It's really a very interesting subject.
Yeah,
and
it's an interesting idea, and it's plausible. I haven't looked into that. I assumed, and maybe wrongfully, but I had assumed that the bison population had been relatively stable. I am not convinced, though, that there was this massive die-off of the Native American population yet. I'm not convinced. Maybe,
really?
Well, because I haven't looked into it yet. But you know, one of the things I have seen is that the assumption there is predicated upon that the Europeans arrived and brought the diseases that Native Americans had no defenses for. But the thing is that, you know, there's so much evidence now showing that, you know, there were lots of explorers and immigrants to the New World prior to the arrival of the Europeans. You know, whether with the Chinese, the Phoenicians, and I'm not necessarily saying that's credible, none of it's been proven, but there's some interesting data out there that suggests, and there are a number of books written that, again, I haven't accessed it, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm an authority on that, because I'm not. But if some of that turns out to be credible, it would suggest that there was a lot more interaction between the Native American population and other groups around the world, which, if true, to me kind of somewhat undermines this idea that they were, completely susceptible to the introduction of these, to these foreign diseases. But again, I've got an open mind. I'll wait and see. I'd like to see what he says. I'd like to hear his ideas.
For anyone interested, he has a paper in the Journal of American History. It's called Bison Ecology and Bison Diplomacy, the Southern Plains from 1800 to 1850. I just looked for it online. There's a preview that's available, but to download the entire paper or book, I'm not sure which one it is, it's $19.
Yeah, and what journal is it in?
The Journal of American History from September of '91. And like I said, he's working on a new book right now, and I'm trying to get him to come in, but it's very difficult while he's in the middle of...
You said September of 1991?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can probably access
Dan Flores is his name, okay. And just the information that I got about it was pretty mind-blowing.
Okay.
But
sounds interesting. I want to know more. Thank you for that, Jim.
Yeah, please. Now let's go back to that photo that you have on your desktop that you were going to explain to me, but we decided not to talk about it before the podcast because it's so incredible. That you said all this incredible change that we're looking at, the geological structure, all that took place within just a week.
Yeah. Let's go to this. We'll come. I've got that. We'll come to that. This is a satellite photograph taken from about 500 miles up. And what you see here, this is southeastern Washington. And what you're looking at here is part of what's called the Columbia Basalt Plateau. This is part of the terrain that we crossed when I was with Graham. What you see here is that you have an area of, if you look here, you can see differentiate between the pixels and the actual squares. That, like you see this red area down here is area that's actually being farmed. And it's because this is an infrared photograph, and so what happens is that the areas that are being cultivated will show up warmer than the surrounding areas. This whole plateau is covered in this stuff called loess, L-O-E-S-S, and it's a type of very fertile soil that has a rather mysterious and controversial origin. We won't get into that right now, but in some places this loess layer is hundreds of feet thick over a dark basalt bedrock that is the result of these massive outflows of basaltic lava that came out, that extruded between about 6 million and 16 million years ago, right? The hot spot that was the ultimate origin of this basalt is now where Yellowstone is, so you can make that connection here. The Yellowstone supervolcano, yeah. But what you have here is that you have the lighter areas is where this loess topsoil still exists, and the darker areas is where the underlying dark basalt is showing through because the loess was washed away. So what this is your typical, the geological term is anastomosing, and basically that means a branching flow pattern of the water. And you can see that very clearly here, that the water came off of this river, which is the Columbia River up here, and flowed over the landscape and washed away the basalt and left these gigantic channels in its wake. And there's more over here to the east, there's more over here to the west. And if we look at actually this, let me go to a different program here. I think that'll actually have some, that actually I think has the picture we're seeing. Now, what we're looking at here is what's been called the Missoula Flood, right? Named after the town of Missoula, Montana. Missoula is in a basin that was part of this hypothesized giant lake that presumably caused this flood, right? And again, there was an ice dam. There was this ice dam. The ice dam broke, and as soon as this thing comes up, I will be able to show you some slide. Here we go. Let's see. Here we go. It should be coming up right here. While that's coming up, we'll look at this slide right here, because this will kind of give you a picture of the Earth as it was during the height of the Ice Age.
So wow, that's pretty deep. The sheets of ice go pretty far down. That's amazing. Canada didn't exist.
Canada didn't exist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Poor Canadians.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the ice, part of it is, a lot of in the Midwest now, a lot of, the farming belt of America is basically, growing out of the fertile soil that the ice scraped off of Canada and dumped, down in Minnesota and Iowa and Wisconsin and so on. So, someday they may want that back, but we're not going to let them have it.
It's fascinating when you look at that there was this big ice cap, but then the areas around it, no ice. And why was that?
Well, that's one of the mysteries. Again, like over here in Siberia,
Yeah.
you can see over here, this is where all the woolly mammoths were, giant herds of woolly mammoths. And it appears like it may have been warmer than now during the Ice Age, which is very odd.
There's some ice up there? Is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, there's some ice up there. Sporadic glaciers, but nothing like what we see in northwestern Europe over here. This was called the Fennoscandian ice sheet. And the ice sheet over North America actually consisted of two ice sheets. The Laurentide, which was centered over Hudson Bay, and the Cordilleran, which was centered over the Canadian Rockies. And in this particular slide, you can see here, this was the Cordilleran over here, over the Canadian Rockies, and this was the Laurentide was much bigger, see? And then there was an area between the two, right here, which has been theorized as, at one point, having been a corridor called the Ice-Free Corridor, and migrants from Paleo-Indian migrants from Siberia would have come across Alaska and down through this corridor here to the lower United States, and ultimately down here to South America. And it was that group, these groups of bands of Paleo-Indian hunters that, according to the overkill or blitzkrieg hypothesis, wiped out the mega mammals as they passed by. It's just, let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here, this kind of will show the coastlines of the world during the Ice Age, and let me just escape out of this so that we can zoom in a little bit and look at it closer. Okay, so here would be, as we see now, and
this is modern coastlines.
This is modern coastlines, and now I'm gonna jump to. This is actually only 300 feet lower than now, and quite a bit different. Let's just look at the United States, North America.
That's amazing. There's a lot more United States.
Yeah, now check this out. Okay, now here's North America as it is now, and you see up here, this is what's called, this is the Bering Strait right here between Alaska and Siberia, right? During the Ice Age, this whole area was exposed because of the lowered sea level. And we'll go one slide further and you will see, take a look now, watch what happens up there in Beringia. Boom.
Wow, so it's all land.
It's all land, and it's connecting North America to Siberia, and that's all drowned.
Wow, I didn't understand that. See, I always thought that the Bering Strait was an ice mass. I thought it was during the Ice Age that there was some sort of
yes,
that it was ice, but it's not. It's land.
No, it's land.
Wow.
And it's not glaciated, and it was home to these extraordinary herds of mega mammals that ranged over these thousands and thousands of square miles. I mean, the drowned area is bigger than modern Alaska.
So how long ago is this?
Well, this is, right at the end, up till the end of the Ice Age. Between like 14, 15,000 years ago.
So 14, 15,000 years ago, no glaciers in this area. This is all just land, and there's animals living in it, and people are walking back and forth. Essentially, it was a continent. It was connected. It was all one continent. It was all one.
It was all one continent.
Wow, that's amazing.
And not the coastlines of the world. Look at Florida down here.
Wow.
It's double the width of the modern peninsula.
Yeah, it's enormous. And it's so close to Mexico, too. It's almost like a little boat ride.
Now, here is Indonesia, And, you know, where stories, which I don't know how credible they are, but, you know, there are stories like Lemuria in the Pacific and all of that. Again, I don't know how credible those are. I think the Atlantis story actually has a little more credibility. We talked about that last time somewhat. But here's the modern, and you can see the light blue is the coastal shelf area, right? Now let's go back. We're going to drop sea level 300 feet, and then you'll see here the enormous change.
Whoa!
So again, enormous areas of land were drowned by the rising sea levels. Remember this, now when we look at the rise of modern cities and modern civilizations, where did they first show up? Where did
On the coasts.
On the coasts, right, at the mouths of rivers, on the coastlines. And during the Ice Age, where would have been the most obvious prime habitable real estate? You know, down close to sea level, right? So if there were cities built, you know, if there were thriving communities during the Ice Age, they're now 400 feet under the water.
It's so amazing that all of these stories of floods, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah's Ark, that all of these stories seem to really correlate with all this data. I mean, they all seem to coincide.
That's exactly the point.
It's so weird. You know, most people would think about the story of Noah's Ark, like, oh, it's just some crazy old horse shit. But it's most likely they're basing it on something that happened very rapidly in their area.
Yeah. Now, of course, we're most familiar with the story of Noah's Ark, you know, because of the Judeo-Christian tradition. But there are hundreds, literally hundreds of stories from all over the world that parallel the story of Noah and Deucalion, Xisuthros, Utnapishtim, Manu. The list goes on and on of these culture heroes that somehow had foreknowledge of this impending disaster and were able to take steps to preserve themselves, their family, some diverse cross-section of species, and they all have this, you know, similarity. They all parallel. Now, my way of looking at it is this. Okay, we now know from the hard geological record that massive floods have taken place on the surface of the earth. Massive floods, right? Beyond anything that we have even imagined, right, up until a decade or a few decades ago. They're real, okay? On the other hand, we have stories and myths and legends repeatedly. It's probably the most ubiquitous of all the stories that we've inherited from the past, is this story of this gigantic world-destroying flood that occurred, right? Now, on the one hand, we have the hard geological record, which shows there were giant floods. Then we have these epic tales and myths from all over the world about giant floods. Do we now dismiss those floods, those stories out of hand and say, oh, that's just superstitious, pre-literate, you know, pseudoscientific nonsense? I think we'd be making a big mistake to do that. Now, if we accept that those flood stories, and maybe they have been altered through the time and through the telling, represent something real, what about the other elements of the story? The fact that in so many cases, there was somebody that had foreknowledge. Do we dismiss that out of hand as well? You know, or where does that come from? That there was one group of people, small group of people, that saw this thing coming and prepared for it, and others who basically paid no attention.
Maybe they were just preppers. Maybe there's the preppers of 10,000 years ago.
The preppers of 10,000 years ago.
I think
that explains it right there. One last slide quick here. Here's Europe. Look at the British Isles. Right? Now we'll drop sea level. No British Isles.
That's incredible.
See, that's what I was saying earlier when we started talking. I mean, the world of 15,000 years ago was so dramatically different than our modern world that, you know, it's almost difficult to conceive until you start looking at things like this.
And this was all during the Ice Age.
Yes.
And so the melting of the glaciers just changed everything as we know it. And this is while human beings were absolutely alive. So.
Absolutely. No question. Human beings were alive, yes. Okay. So we'll start looking at some of these pictures here. This is from western Montana. You know, it says in Genesis 7:19, the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth and all the high hills were covered. I want you to take a look, because you can see many mountains in western United States, if you know what you're looking at, that have this on them. You know what those are? Those horizontal lines?
They look like where the shore.
They're shorelines. Exactly, they're shorelines.
That's absolutely what they are?
That's absolutely what they are. They're shorelines. Wow. Reaching right up to the very tops of the hills, you see. And basically what you had was you had this enormous gush of water filling these mountain valleys almost to the mountain peaks and then draining away. And as it drained away, it left the succession of shorelines etched into the hillside.
Wow.
And all along the pathway of the floods, we're going to see stuff like this. This was our first stop with Graham. This is La Tourelle Falls. This is that basalt I was talking about. Look at this stuff. There's layers of this basalt.
Well, that's you guys underneath it?
I don't think in this picture. I think I took this picture about 10 years ago. But yeah, I have pictures of me and Graham under there.
Well, you're so tiny. That's so crazy. It's so big.
Right. Now, here's what you've got to picture, Joe. Picture you've got this nice, gentle valley with a nice river, very pastoral scene, you know, trees and stuff. Probably, you know, mammoths and herds of these animals grazing along the side of this peaceful river with gentle valley slopes. Here comes this massive flood, and we're talking about perhaps a flood wave 800 to 1,000 feet high coming through. As it comes through, it's ripping up everything in its path. And what it does is it now changes the profile of this valley from this gentle profile to down cutting 800, 1,000, 1,200 feet or more into the bedrock, right? So now, prior to the passage of this giant flood, you had streams and nice little rivers flowing into the main river, which in this case was the Columbia. What happens is after the passage of this flood wave, it sheared off the sides of the channel. So that now, rather than a gentle slope, you've got sheer cliffs 400, 500, 600 feet high. These pre-flood streams and rivers come up, and they're now waterfalls. And that's what we're looking at right here in this picture, if that makes sense to you. And you notice how you've got this undercutting here. That undercutting only occurs when you have enormous, intense turbulence in the water doing this. You see, the water doing this will undercut. See, this modern waterfall here had nothing to do with the creation of this cliff. This cliff was cut, again, probably in a matter of days to weeks by the passage of these giant floods. And there's dozens of these waterfalls that are left. They're called, and these are called hanging valleys. They can be produced by glaciers, but they can also be produced by enormous, intense flood waves. This is your typical, not typical. This is a bar, a gravel bar, but in this case it's a boulder bar. And if you've ever done any walking along a river or a creek or along the beach and you've seen ripples in the sand, and they're typically, you know, if you've got water that's a foot or 2 feet deep, you'll have ripples that are maybe an inch or two high. What we're looking at here is a flood bar that's 3 miles long. It's up to 250 feet above the modern river. And the ripples that you can see here are up to 50 feet in height and 350 feet in wavelength. This was produced, again, by gigantic flood flows. And if you look right over here, that's a 3-story building you see right there for scale.
Oh, wow.
So this gives you an idea. It's features like this that are just unequivocal in terms of realizing that this is not pseudoscience. This really happened.
And does this date back to a very specific time?
Yes, to this 13,000 years.
So it's everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah.
You're seeing this. You've seen it geologically. You've seen it in ice cores. You've seen it in fossils. You've seen
Yes.
Wow.
This is evidence of the big meltdown.
Popular opinion? The
Hell
idea
yeah.
that there are no races?
Oh, okay. So, I'm Mr. Anti-academic, but this is where academics have actually done their best work, I think. So, and this is my second disagreement with Jordan Peterson. He thinks that all the stuff in college campuses that's crazy is because of postmodernism, and he doesn't understand postmodernism. What's going on in college campuses is people making all sorts of truth claims about things like race and gender, right? I'm black, therefore I will always be this, that, and the other thing. You're white, therefore you are this, that, and the other thing no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. That is actually old, modernist, scientific racist thinking. That's what these old racist, geneticists, eugenicists thought back in the day. It's amazing. Again, SJWs are actually really, really conservative and ultimately racist. The
Social justice warriors, folks. For people who don't know,
I thought your listeners must know that.
Some people don't know the abbreviations.
I just assumed that was a shorthand to use. So, postmodernism. This is where Jordan Peterson makes me want to like throw chairs when he talks about this. Comes out of French philosophy in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. Michel Foucault is the most famous example of a French postmodernist, and they get dumped on all the time. But the central argument that was made by Foucault and postmodernists was that none of these things are biologically determined, that there is no natural essence to anything, that everything is a social construct, which means that we now are free to choose our own destiny as individuals, right? Prior to that, prior to the 1960s and 70s, it was the dominant belief that if you were born a woman, you were going to be a wife and a mother. And if you weren't, you were doing something unnatural, right? That if you were black, you could never be the head of a business or the president, right? You could never do math, whatever. If you were white, you know, you should do all those things, right? Everybody's destiny was determined at birth. And everyone believed that. Most people believed that.
Okay.
So postmodernists came along and said, guess what? You know what we found looking at history? We found just what I said. I just gave you the whole postmodern argument right there. We looked at history and we saw, first of all, that all these categories have changed over time, which tells us that they're just inventions. They're just inventions. They get reinvented all the time, okay? And second of all, they have served the purposes of ruling elites because they get to put people in their boxes and control them more easily, right? Oh, those people over there, those are black, therefore they should be our slaves. So it's okay for us to have them as slaves. Those women over there, we don't want them, you know, working for NASA. So we will have a rule against women working for NASA, whatever it is, right? So postmodernists said, none of this is biological, none of this is inevitable. You are now free to do what you want as an individual. It was a liberating moment. It has become the dominant way of thinking in academia. And I have to say, in my view, it is the supreme achievement of academics ever.
That's it?
That's it. But it's huge, huge. So if you think about it, look how the world has changed, and particularly in the United States since then, right? We no longer generally have those ideas, or at least we don't operate as such. So black people are allowed, mostly, into places they weren't before. Women are allowed, very much so, into places they weren't allowed before. The whole world has changed, and I think principally from that idea. So that doesn't mean, now the problem is that these social justice warriors, so-called, on campuses, have used...
Yes. So women are allowed more places, you know, black people are allowed more places. Where is the power? Who controls the resources? Who manufactures the weapons? Who has a monopoly on violence? And who dictates what is and what is not a crime? Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed at all.
Some of that language and taking a shit on it. So the trans movement, for instance, right? That started from postmodernism. That whole idea, right, is that, you know, if you were born with a penis, you're a man and you should do X, Y, and Z with your life, right? The trans movement needed postmodernism to make that intervention and say, no, that's not true, right? You can actually be a woman because woman is an invention, it's a social construct. what much of the trans movement now is doing, which makes me so sad, is that they're saying that I am biologically, essentially, naturally, in my core, a woman. No, no one is. No one is. You can't. The whole point of this movement used to be that you get to choose your gender or choose not to be a gender. You get to move around. Your destiny is not determined for you. What a lot of the trans movement now is doing is a good word, reifying. They're making these ideas, these abstractions real again. They're making these claims that are similar to Sam Harris's claims and to old racist claims and to old sexist claims, that if you're born a particular way biologically, this is who you are, right? Because you've heard a lot of trans people say this, right? I was born a woman. That's what they often say.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is, no one was born anything.
Well, you are losing me in a huge way.
Why?
You don't think that some women are born women and some, you don't think you're born a man?
No.
What are you born? Why are you a man?
For all sorts of reasons.
For all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
None of them being
well,
biological.
We just decided.
None of them being the XY chromosome. None of them being you have testicles. None of them being you have a penis. None of them being the fact that you generally gravitate towards male activities like boxing, kickboxing, aggressive things.
We just went through this whole thing.
No, you didn't.
Yoel Romero and Andy Dick.
Yeah, but you.
Why are they both men?
But you're a man.
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking about the broad spectrum of masculine behavior. We're talking about no one is born a man. You're not born a man. I'm not born a man.
I'm saying that no. I think
we're getting silly.
Hold on here. I think it's the category of man becomes meaningless.
Does it?
Yeah, we just did this, man.
No, we didn't. We definitely didn't do
Yoel
this.
Romero and Andy Dick are both
it's a broad category. The lines
so
get blurry
broad.
at the ends of the spectrum, and I think they cross over. The male-female lines do cross over when you get to that Kenyan runner and Andy Dick.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's so broad that it becomes, to me, pretty damn meaningless.
Well, the numbers are incredibly small at those crossover marks. You're talking about a very, very small percentage of the population.
Neither Andy Dick nor Yoel Romero are trans people, right?
Andy might be.
They are so different, though, physically in every way.
Okay, yeah.
But we both put them in this silly category called man. What the hell does that mean anymore?
Andy has children. He made them. He impregnated different women and got babies from them.
There's a lot of people called men who don't and can't.
Okay, yeah,
Can't.
But that's rare.
They were born that way, by the way.
That's pretty rare.
Not that rare.
Oh, it's very rare.
It happens.
Most men, when they have sex with a woman and they put sperm in their body, they can make a baby.
So that's one characteristic.
But hold on a second. You're making it as if it's a really common thing. When you're talking about like a small fraction of the men can't make babies. An incredibly small fraction.
So the
vast majority of males with the XY chromosome who have penises are capable of impregnating a female with an XX chromosome. I mean, the male was born a male, the female was born a female.
Right.
So what do you mean that you aren't born a man or you aren't born a female?
Right, so there are many, many characteristics, right, that we assign to the category of man. Many of them.
Okay.
That's one characteristic. Okay? So why is that characteristic in the man category? If, in particular, that there are some men who don't
This
share
dude is
characteristics.
dripping. Joe Rogan is like, why did I bring you on my show? You're a
The aberration
dude.
is the ones that
Why is it
don't.
an aberration? See, these are all
Because they can't
inventions.
get a woman pregnant, they don't produce sperm. You're talking about like very, very rare cases.
Yeah, for race, same thing happens with sickle cell anemia, right? This is what everybody invokes when they want to claim that race is real. Only black people get sickle cell anemia. Well, guess what? The numbers there are about the same as the number of men who are infertile. Why then are people with sickle cell anemia definitely black? Why is that definitely a black thing? Same thing. It's, again, why are there's all these characteristics. Why do we draw this line called man around all those different people?
Well, why do we do it with animals? When you have a male dog and a female dog, isn't there a male dog and a female dog? You don't believe there's a male dog and a female dog?
I'm just saying it's inventions. Now, hold on. So before you get...
But it's not an invention.
Yeah, no, it is, of course.
But it's not an invention. One of them has a penis and testicles. It's a male.
The thing we see, we call it a penis. Sure, I get it. No, I get it. And that's the world I live in. Absolutely. So I operate in this way, by the way. So
a dog penis world?
You and I would agree on all the things in the world that are dogs.
Right.
And all the things... Okay, I'm not going to walk around and be like, oh, no, Joe, that's not a dog.
So with humans, you're making a distinction that there are certain feelings and the way you interface with the world that may be more or less masculine or feminine.
No, but it does apply to dogs, my point here, which is that we did draw a line, right? In those, there's this, do all dogs look alike? My God, there's a huge variation there
We're not
too.
talking about race, though. We're talking about gender, right?
Either way, it doesn't matter. It's
Okay,
the same,
let's just
same
say
principle.
Dobermans.
Yes, it does.
Huh? Male Dobermans and female Dobermans, right? You can't,
Sure.
like, if you go to buy a male Doberman, and the guy gives you a female Doberman, he goes, oh, but she identifies as being a male. This it's just an invention, man. This is a male, but she's a male. You can't disrespect her by saying she's not a male. You would say that guy's crazy, and you want your money back.
Are there any two females who are identical?
Two female what?
Anything.
Anything.
I mean, if you have a
No.
really good breeder, you can get pretty goddamn close if you're talking about dogs.
No. There are no two organisms that are identical. Certainly
They're
not.
not
Certainly
identical
not.
down to the hair.
Yeah,
You got
well.
a technicality, but
So
you can still
then-
categorize them as XY
Sure.
or XX chromosomes.
Sure.
No?
And I'm not saying we shouldn't categorize anything ever, because we must do that to live in this world.
What are you saying?
What I am saying is we should probably stop applying certain categories to human beings in the ways we have done.
Like how so?
Because there
How
are
so
certain,
with male and female?
Because there are certain inventions, certain social constructs that do nothing but bad things, that do no good, and they're only social constructs, like race and gender.
Well, tell me how race and gender definition.
I'm not worried
how
about Dobermans too
especially
much.
gender definition. Let's look at gender definition and tell me how it's only bad. Why is it only bad to define men as men and women as women?
Because, well, if you say it's about making the biological claim, the biological connection there.
Well, making a definition,
Which
like
is-
saying a guy who is born a guy who gravitates towards male activities, likes females, all those things, by saying that that's a man, that this is a born man, and you're saying no one is.
So if you're saying if those characteristics are naturally determined, then all of us guys who don't do those things are unnatural.
Which things are those?
All
Being
the
attracted
things
to
that,
women,
whatever it is that you characterize as being male, right?
But that's so common with males.
What is?
Being attracted to women,
Oh, really?
engaging in
Oh,
sex
really?
with women.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Have you heard of gay people?
Yes, it's a small percentage
you
of the
mean?
population of men. Is it 1%? Is it 10%?
Yeah,
1 out of
guess.
10?
I mean, it's certainly a lot of people, isn't it?
Well, it's a lot of people when you think about the 350 million people we have living in America. Sure.
Take all the men. Let's do this. Take all the men who are straight up homosexual, always
Right,
have
but
been.
that's,
Hold on.
but you can classify them as gay men.
I know. Hold on. So just take that, whatever that is.
Okay.
If it's 1 or 2 or 5 or 10%, whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
Only been homosexual, 100%. Never been attracted to a woman. Period. Okay. Okay. Fine. That's still a really significant number. I'm not done. Hang on. Then take the men who don't identify as homosexual, have had sex with women, have been attracted to women, but have fucked men.
Prisoners.
Pretty damn big number there. Pretty damn. Oh.
Wait a minute. How many guys do you think that are
Pretty
attracted to women
big.
but still fuck men?
So Kinsey, the Kinsey study,
sure,
in the 1940s and 50s, found that it was, I think, 30%.
What?
Yes.
30% of men fuck men?
Reached orgasm in a sexual experience with another man. Yes.
30%.
Yes. Yes. It was a very large number.
Kinsey was hanging out with freaks.
Yep.
That's what I think.
There were different numbers for women and men.
What
They were
the
both very
fuck?
significant percentages. Very, not majorities, but very significant
Wait a
percentages.
minute.
Well, I don't know.
I
what to
have
say to
personally
that.
known.
Who would even do a study on that shit? What is this dude? Yo, Rogan is trying to put this guy in this spot, man.
Blowjob, gotten a blowjob, had full on.
And this dude is just dripping for like the weirdest
I'm surprised this is
shit to try to make his point
it's
when
news
you're
in
not
that
going to make a point,
even
bro.
if they did do that, you're talking about individual sexual acts between people who are male or female, right? You're still talking about a man. Still talking about a man that's having sex with other men. You're defining it such in that way. You're literally saying
No.
a guy.
You are.
You are saying you know guys who've sucked other guys' dicks. A guy who's
Right.
done it to a guy.
No, yeah.
You're saying a man do it to a man.
Gotcha. I gotcha. No, I'm saying that people who are identified as men
You didn't
by
say that,
society.
though, did
but that's
you?
what I meant. People who are
That's what I
identified
meant.
as men by society have done these things that
So
society
when they
considers
were-
to be unnatural for men.
But when they were doing that, weren't they a man doing it to a man?
And look what happened to those guys historically. Not so much recently, but still today, but certainly historically.
Listen, we can't keep going back to 100 plus years from now.
I'm talking
Let's
about-
talk about like right now.
I am.
You're still talking about a man who's having a sexual exchange with another man.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be sexually attracted to another man. It doesn't mean that you're both not men.
So do you think homosexual men are men?
Sure.
Why?
Because they're male. They have a penis. They have XY chromosomes.
So
they can get a woman pregnant if they wanted to.
Okay,
they
so-
can donate their sperm to their lesbian pals, and they can all
So
have
then you
babies
just
together.
eliminated one of the characteristics that you previously said was male.
No,
which is
no,
attraction
no,
to
no.
women.
Most men, are attracted to women, but a good percentage of them are gay. This is not like complicated stuff. They're still men.
They're still men.
I mean, I don't know where to go from here. I mean, I think I think I've made the argument. It's
MD,
funny
what's
'cause
good?
I thought you were totally with me for like an hour and a half, and now it's like I feel like you're not there. I don't know
Definitely
what to
not there with
say.
that. I think there's a
Definitely not there
giant
with that.
spectrum of people, but to say that a guy isn't born a man or a woman isn't born a woman, I think is disingenuous.
Yeah. So it's where okay, Thailand, I think in India, and I think there's several Polynesian countries. There's several countries where there is a legal and cultural and social category that is neither man nor woman, nor male nor female. Like in Thailand, the ladyboys, right? And there's other countries too have this. You can look it up. It's easy.
Sure.
Right?
What?
Okay? You know about this, maybe.
Sure.
Okay.
What
What about that?
this dude is.
What about those?
That too.
What do you? Oh,
I
wait.
think there's that too.
So, oh. Okay.
I'm saying people can be born a man,
But if you-
people can be born a woman, or you can get these Andy Dick, Yoel Romero weird variations.
But Joe, take the ladyboys from Thailand,
Okay.
and move them here to this country now. How will they be considered?
What do you mean? How will they be considered?
Americans don't have those categories.
Okay.
We have only
Well,
two.
don't
we
you
have
think there's a
only
lot of
two.
variables in Thailand also that you're dealing with, like really young sex workers? There's a lot of weird shit that goes on in Thailand, a lot of abuse.
So is the ladyboy category real or not?
It's certainly real. As is
Okay.
the trans category
Right.
is real.
So there they consider that real, and
But
here
if
we
it-
do not.
But if a trans
Why? That's
category is
really weird,
real,
isn't it?
and I think you agree it's real, and I agree it's real,
Mhm.
right? Trans people, I mean, there's absolutely people that feel like they're born in the wrong gender,
Well, sure.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
uh-huh.
So why isn't a man real? Why isn't a woman real?
Oh,
They're
okay.
real too.
If you want to say they're all equally real, I'm down.
Yes.
I'm there. We're good.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. It's just that those categories have no absolute, biological meaning. There's not meaning that they're fluid. They're basically arbitrary. Sorry. I mean that we invent them. I'm not saying it's useless. I'm not saying we should never have any categories. I'm just saying that those categories have changed and they change.
But you kind of
depending
did
on
say
where
that,
you
though.
are
That's
in the
why I'm
world.
disagreeing with you. You kind of did say that a man isn't born a man, and that a woman isn't born a woman. And for sure, a lot of them are. For sure, a lot of people that have your stereotypical classic female characteristics were born female. And for sure, there's a lot of men who have classic stereotypical male behavior and patterns and desires. They're born men.
Yes,
and then there's trans people. And then there's asexual people that also need to be considered. There's people that just don't have any desire to fuck anybody.
Okay.
They don't want to. They don't want to be a man or a woman. They can call themselves queer. They can call themselves whatever they want. They don't want to be a female. They don't want to be a male. They just want to be human.
Here's the deal. How about let's make a deal. If that's what you have to say about it, and you want to not get in the way of people doing those things and making those decisions for
You don't want
themselves,
to get in the
and let
way?
them do what they want to do, I am totally with you. And that's
well,
true.
For sure, I don't want to get in the
Well,
way of anybody making. I
that's-
don't want to get in the way of furries.
That's awesome.
If you really
That's
identify
awesome.
with being a giant squirrel,
That's awesome. That's great. And that's really what matters. I'm just saying that claims...
Furries?
And I want to
He
end
just
it
dropped
here.
some other shit. People
Claims
pretend to
about
be giant
these
squirrels?
essential characteristics that it's
Okay.
biologically determined, right?
Right.
Are the things that reinforce getting in the way. Laws, policies, cultures, ideas, norms that get in the way of people doing what they want to do with their own lives. Right? Because
yeah,
you see what I mean?
for sure with some people. Well,
See
the,
what I
the
mean?
variables are so extreme,
tell you-
and the spectrum is so broad.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy that one was over, Joe. Like, Joe even, more than halfway through that, he was like, maybe I brought the wrong guy on
Hello,
my show.
freak bitches. That's working.
Not really. It's a day off for me, so I'm really random with streams on my days off. It all depends on what I'm doing, what kind of mood I'm in. I really don't have anything planned for today? Holy crap, yeah, I drank like 2 really big cups of cappuccino, and I keep having to take a piss. Shit. But I was just up super early this morning. Play.
Isn't this like life in general?
Yeah,
it's slippery.
Yeah,
there's. I mean, it's like we were talking about with abortion. Like, what is it? Is it killing a baby? Yeah, or is it a medical procedure?
Yeah. Can we all just agree that it's both? That like that.
No,
I don't
we
understand why there is, especially in this country, like it's so polarizing here. You know, this is not a debate. No.
Oh, come on, man.
No.
Dawkins had tweeted something about it, that there's nothing that's people, like a human embryo was essentially the same thing as a pig embryo. It was like some ridiculous comparison to abortion.
Look, the religious right will always be crazy about the things that it's crazy about, and people will always get offended on Twitter when Richard Dawkins tweets something that's unpopular. By the way, I have an interview with him coming up. If you don't, let me just plug, if you don't subscribe to We the People Live, then search for We the People, all one word, in your podcast app. I'll be talking to Sam Harris tomorrow, which will get released in a couple of weeks. And don't shout at me for not releasing it immediately like you did last time, Twitter. And
don't tell them not to shout at you.
We'll have some. Yeah,
that's their right.
Exactly.
They have the First Amendment right.
It's true. I'm going to sue their asses. I'm going to drag them through court. And I'll be talking to Joe about. I'll be launching a little Ask Me Anything kind of Q&A
Dawkins.
thing. And so I did a live event with Dawkins.
He's had a stroke.
Post-stroke. He's great. He's fine. He's doing well.
Well, the stroke did not affect his cognitive function, but it did affect his ability to sing, which is interesting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Can't keep a tune.
Yeah, and so there are a few motor functions that I think it's affected, but it didn't. As you say, it didn't affect his cognitive. So that'll be being released. So follow at WTP_live on Twitter.
Nobody's going to remember
underscore.
They'll find it.
They'll find it. Weird people. Anyway, so what Richard Dawkins was saying is people are going to be angry at him on Twitter regardless of what he says, but I still affirm that in the states the conversation around abortion is uniquely different from the way that it is in Europe and in Australia. It's just much more of a fault line issue, and I wonder whether in hindsight.
So yeah, on my days off I can stream a lot earlier in the day and a lot longer, and stream several times throughout the day on but you normally catch me in the evenings on the days that I work. So yeah, I know it's that Monday grind. Everybody got that 9 to 5, but I can definitely stream again this evening. And I'm an early bird. On my days off, I like to just get up and get shit done. Dang. 9 to 10? Holy shit. Yeah, that's pretty rough. That's pretty rough. I'll do a late night stream tonight. Cause shortly, this is the last commission I'm working on, but probably throughout the day as I work on it, I'll have the entire canvas covered, and it'll be too wet to work on for a day or so. I'll have to set it to the side and let it dry, so I can actually get back on one of my projects, the one with the red clouds that I've been slowly working on for a month or so. But yeah, as soon as I can get a second layer of paint over this entire canvas, I'll like I say, I'll work on that. I can stream that tonight. I might have to go run some errands. Whenever you're ready. It'll make a good Christmas present to yourself or a friend, family member. Yep. Yep. Whenever you're ready. I should be starting another commission here shortly. I really need to do that today. Look over those photographs. Oh, I got laundry to finish and something else I meant to do. Oh, I might go shoe shopping today. You know it. Well, I don't know. Actually, I've been up for hours already. I got up like 3 o'clock this morning. I was gonna come straight into the studio then. I was like, fuck it. I went to hit the gym for a little while and then came home and got a little bit of laundry done and then started working on this. Get it right, Carbon. Damn, you can't even get your words together. P-U, shit, I didn't meant to say that. I meant to say pussy. Oh, damn it, all caps. I meant to say pussy boy. There it goes. Well, fuck it, he understands. Oh, y'all got 2 stores in PA? Okay. Robert Wayne footwear. What kind of, I'm gonna have to look that up. What kind of shoes is that? You know what I'm saying? I'm getting old, man. I need to start dressing, get me some more dress shoes, yo. Start dressing like a casual man. Robert Wayne. Pussy boy. It was, you try it. You try it, Carbon. You know what I'm saying? Good try though. Maybe next time you'll get the whole shit together the first time before you hit the send button. Get this kid out of here, yo. Whose kid is this? Whose kid is this? There you go. They got it. There you go. Boy, I got faith in you, man. Stick around. Stick around, man. I got faith in you, man. I was gonna call your mom and tell her you in here cursing, but I changed my mind. I'll let you slide. Paint a mural of 2017 USA. Oh my God. The shit I would have to put in there. Ooh-wee. Cause I got down with the motherfucking little braille strap on it, you know. And I used to pick at old people's shoes because they had Velcro. Like, old people can't even tie their shoes. They just put Velcro on it. And then I bought some shoes with only Velcro. Like, I'm an old person, yo. But these shit is hot, yo. I need some fake Chinese Yeezys. Y'all seen them before? Oh, y'all ain't seen them. They look like some racing sneakers or something. They got them in the all whites. Oh shit. The all whites. Them shit's hot, right? You got these Jones? I ain't never really seen nobody with these yet, yo. I mean, they've been in the store for a while, but I don't see nobody wearing them. I show these off too, cause I ain't never seen nobody with these shits, yo. The motherfucking the air bubble in the Timbs, yo. Nobody don't be rocking these joints. Oh shit. That shit's too hard though. Had these for like some years too. I ain't even gonna lie. And still, after the years I done had these, I still never seen nobody else with these boots, yo. Never. And they're like, you can get them. Like, I don't know why people don't like these shit, yo. These shit, and they comfortable as shit, yo. Always be trying to find some Timbs but ain't nobody got, yo. Oh shit. So what's good? What's good? What's good? What time is it actually? I ain't do a time check in a minute. It is 8:30 and I've been in here for 2 hours already. That's what's up. Oh, somebody gotta be to work at 9. And it's my day off. Oh, I've been up too early. Oh man. I don't know if I should play the game for a little while or take a nap. Sleep is for the weak. But I do need to. Oh shit. I need to recharge. Working them Jordans. Now what I wear in the studio, I got these Pumas on my feet today. I got some New Balances, man. My New Balances, I like the paint in them shits, man. I cannot find them. I don't know where I put them shits at. Oh, damn. I got some clothes in the dryer. I got some clothes in the wash that need to go in the dryer. I know, Aaron, but that's been done like, oh my god! And every time like something comes up, there's like 1,000 people already on top of it. So it's just like, I try to stay away from like mainstream, popular images because you already know you're gonna see it. I've seen like Kaepernick, and ever since last year, like literally like thousands of Kaepernick paintings, and it's like it's a pretty good topic, but it's been done already. It's been done. That's why I just try to focus on my own series. I'm working on this this nude series now. Yeah, it's and then that's the thing is like popular figures, iconic figures, their image gets so saturated in the art community. Whereas like I really do try to avoid those images just for that reason. Not that I don't respect Kaepernick for what he did, you know what I'm saying? Awesome dude, you know what I'm saying? And but I just don't want to paint him because it's like everybody's done it, yo. Good morning. Good morning. So it's like, man, so now I always have to try to find other ways, but still, you know what I'm saying? I may do something like that because I've only painted like two, they actually like movie stars, and that's because I like them a lot. And even though their image has probably been drawn and painted, so many times before, I still decided to do it. But after I did it the second time, it was like I can't continue to do that. I want to paint more people that I find interesting. But if they're so much in the mainstream and in the limelight, I just really like Kendrick Lamar. I really want to do a fucking painting of K-Dot, but he's been painted like 1,000, 100,000,000 times. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. There's no picture that I personally can find of Kendrick that nobody else hasn't ever seen, And for situations like that, I say now, if I got a motherfucking a one-on-one session where I can sit down and talk with K-Dot on some personal shit, and I photograph him myself, use my own camera to take a picture of him, and I know ain't nobody else in the world got this photograph. Nobody got this picture. Everybody done painted him 1,000 times, but not this picture. Then I'll do some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? I need some original shit. That's like one of my favorite artists, yo. I was gonna use an image that he had of himself and paint a portrait of it just, in his honor, just because he inspires me so much. I wanted to paint a picture of one of my favorite artists. And I never did it until I met him in person and we took photographs together. And so they were my own personal photographs that I took with this dude. And then I painted one of those because ain't nobody else had that picture but me. You know what I'm saying? He didn't even have it. You know what I'm saying? So I'd rather do my projects like that where, the images I create are my images. Now, I do use a lot of people, a lot of photographers' work. And I try to find other photographers and models to help me, but I still want those images to be as original as possible, Just brought a Russell Williams jersey. Now I'm gonna sound real ignorant, but as you can see, I'm an artist, not an athlete. I'm not into sports at all. So you would have to forgive me when I say I don't know who Russell Wilson is. You know, if he has a jersey, obviously he's an athlete, and if you're an Aussie, that means you're probably into rugby or soccer, which is called football. So, and I'm not Snoop. But so yeah, I'm guessing Russell Wilson is some kind of controversial soccer player, and you're gonna go, you got one of his jerseys to support his cause. It's pretty badass, bro. Quarterback for the Seahawks? Really? Russell Wilson? I was all wrong. Hey, don't hold it against me. I told you I don't know fucking sports, yo. I was just making some educated guesses. So I do know something about the Seahawks. A guy from my hometown, Tony McDaniel, played for the Seahawks a few years ago. They won the, if I'm not mistaken, the Seahawks won the Super Bowl like a couple years back or something like that. My homie actually played on it. Oh, here's another football fact I do know. Marshawn Lynch played for the Seahawks. Bam! Boy, hey, I'm more sports savvy than I thought. You know, I'm more sports savvy than I thought. Yeah. I'll be back on later, yo. Have a good day. You know what I'm saying? And be courteous, yo, at work. You know, I don't want you to have to slap somebody or cuss nobody out today. But and I know Marshawn Lynch played for the Seahawks just because he's a cool ass dude, yo. Like, for some reason I've seen like a couple of videos or interviews of Lynch, yo. Yo, that guy is fucking crazy, yo. And then I remember there was this one play he did where, I don't know, he just like, it is what it is. I understand, you know. I understand. You got to get that little woosah, you know. But don't do the Al Bundy. She said, I ain't making no promises. Because this motherfucker started tripping. Bitch, I'm just trying to sell you some motherfucking shoes. Bitch, if they don't fit, I tell you we ain't got your size. You, what? I will call the cops. I dare you to put that fucking phone down. You, stop recording me. Anyway, I've never had to do that before. Break this fucking phone, bitch. Oh, cause Lynch had that one play, yo. He like, I don't know, it was like a 60-yard touchdown run, yo, where he juked somebody, then he stiff armed like 2 or 3 people, and then he ran into the end zone and he jumped in the air and he grabbed his dick. Like, it was crazy as shit. I ain't never seen nobody do that like that. Yo, he just jumped up. He was like, my dick. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Beast mode. And I'm telling you, yo, that shit was crazy. That dude was like, what the fuck? My dick. Who does that? I'm like, who really? That's so unprofessional for an athlete. But it was the funniest shit I've seen in a long time in football. So I had to know who the fuck this Marshawn Lynch guy was. And then he said he stopped playing football for a while. And then now he's back in the NFL. But now he's trying to do a Kaepernick move or something like that. I'm not sure, man. You know. All I know is what I read on Facebook when it comes to sports, that is. You know, everything I've heard about this Mayweather Conor fight is from Facebook. It's not like I go to ESPN.com or have the app for that shit or anything like that. Like, man, I'll just see what other people are posting, you know. But sports can be fun. Yeah. Sports can be fun. If not taken too seriously. If you don't take sports too seriously, it can be fun, yeah.
Federation kickoff.
Well, we've been forced in this position by a thing called white privilege. I don't know if you're aware of it.
I checked it on my way out.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is we're all human beings who migrated from Africa. That's a fact.
Yeah.
You go back far enough, but we're not willing to go back farther. We're stopping wherever the fuck, you know. We got this accent from, this is my homeland and I'll defend it till my death. That guy's just that color because it never fucking, it's always cloudy.
Yeah, vitamin
never
D
stops
deficiency.
raining. Yeah,
that's literally it.
Exactly. That's why they're so pale. They're trying to suck as much of the vitamin D out of the sky as they can.
Yeah, because like 2% couldn't get pussy because they died.
They died from lack of vitamin D.
And that's how evolution works.
They turn into paper. Those people. They're little goddamn solar panels just walking around sucking in the vitamin D. They're all Africans. Irish people are Africans that just stayed in Ireland.
Yes.
That's what they are. That's what we all are.
It's just like a flash when we started separating, and it really has nothing to do with who we are as people.
I can see the criticism. Yeah, you're one of those, bro, I don't even see color people. Those people, I don't even see color, bro.
Then you're like, no, I am racist, but... like, listen, I don't want you in my store, but I know we're equal.
Yeah.
I don't even see color, man, except with the gay rainbow.
Yeah, I'm not into Raiders fans or, Chinese food shoppers.
Yeah, like I used to do a song where it was like, black dudes with more than one pit bull scare the shit out of me, but a black guy with a cell phone on his belt I trust.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I would do it. I would have the crowd yell
like a guy that works at Verizon?
Yeah, because it's all cultural signifiers.
Right.
And so I would have the crowd yell out anybody, white people. It's like white dudes with teardrop tattoos in Idaho scared, And you just go through any race. And you're like, look, it's that Chris Rock joke that I won't repeat because of my privileged. But like there's this group and then there's this group.
Yes.
And everybody knows which one are the dickheads and which one, not even dickheads, but from a position of like desperation.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are in history.
If I walk by too many dudes that have their pants sagging, for like more than 2 of them, I go, oh, these guys must make stupid decisions.
Yeah, bad decision guys.
Yeah. If you got like your pants like down like to like the curve, the downward curve of your ass.
Right.
Like it's riding the curve, and I can see like a giant percentage of your underwear.
Yeah, one guy may have forgot a belt. 2 guys, they're hiding guns.
It's not even that. It's just they're just making stupid decisions with their life, for sure.
You don't learn. Like my mom was teaching a class once, and she was like, they took N-word Jim out of Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah, they did.
Like
they
you
took that word out.
You can't know a time unless you know the characters from that time, you know? And it's giving people a real disservice to just like emasculate and neuter our history so that everybody can't see what real dangers are, like what just happened in Charlottesville. Like all the people that called Dave Rubin a Nazi now have to use the same word for these people.
Right, exactly.
And it's like now it has no meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good, very good point.
Thank you.
It's really important to not overreact to people that don't have the exact same opinion as you. Now, when something like this happens, you realize, okay, that's what you should react to.
Exactly.
This is real. This is real. You got a bunch of douchebags with torches from Home Depot or wherever the fuck they got this. Those are the citronella people have in like the suburbs. They have like a tiki party.
Dude,
in the
I was
backyard.
gonna buy some and now I can't.
Come on,
like
guys.
I was literally gonna I like those torches for killing mosquitoes, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, I'm not gonna buy those now because of Charlottesville.
And all these guys. I mean, if any of those people that are into that are listening, I'm not even upset at you. As a human, you get trapped into patterns of thinking. I'm upset at that pattern. I'm upset that this is a repeating pattern that's happened through human history.
Okay, that's it. And that's the system. That's the fucking system. And he says it. And this is the thing, too, even with Rogan and other even Jane Elliott, like very, 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 very well-meaning, very smart white people. Sometimes they refuse to say white supremacy. They just will not say it. And that's what it is. This pattern, this system, this construct, you know, that seems to ever persist because it's more of a mental thing. And we know the elite at the very, very top, the 1%, the billionaires and the bankers, they're all of European descent. And no one ever wants to focus on taking that power away from those specific groups and divvying it up to the real people who should have some type of financial holdings on the resources that come from their lands. Period.
Where people decide that there's specific groups that somehow or another deserve preferential treatment or are better or superior or should dominate over other groups. It's stupid and it's bad for business. It's bad for the business of being human beings.
Yeah.
It gets in the way. You're judging people on nonsense, and you get to all be in the group just because you have similar skin color. That's fucking stupid. You're allowing a bunch of losers in your group then, because your only differentiation is that they have to be white. That is insanely stupid. It's so stupid.
Yeah, it's like,
you're gonna miss out on all the cool black people. You're gonna miss out on all the cool Cubans and all the cool Puerto Ricans. You're gonna miss out on them. And you're gonna think that you have some family in this idea that you all have Nordic roots or something like that. It's so dumb. I understand if you run into people that are black and they're racist against white people and you feel like, white people have to protect themselves. If you get in one of those situations, and situations are most recently, like out there in the the Twitter sphere, but for a good long time, it was a defensible argument that a black person couldn't be racist because racism is all about power, and black people don't have power over white people. Like, well, that is, you're changing the word. You're changing the fucking word, and you're going to empower actual racists.
Of course, and it's like you don't know Nazis till you know Treaty of Versailles. And you don't know this until just over-shaming always has a springboard effect.
Always.
Like after World War I, it's the same with the shamed gay guy is the one that hates gay people,
Yeah.
Where it's like shame is a horrible thing in people. And so World War I, blood on all hands. That was started and executed for very bizarre reasons. They blamed Germany for all of it to the point where they destroyed Germany, and then they were looking for a voice that gave them hope, and that voice is insane. And so that happens. That happened in this, where it's like, dear white people, being white, you should just say sorry all the fucking time, even though your people came in 1900.
Well, you can see it today in the people that never criticize Trump and have like exclamation points, and they write MAGA after all their tweets, no matter what Trump does, no matter what Trump says.
Yeah,
it's always amazing. Everything's always perfect. Like, okay. Well, I see what you're doing because you're not really thinking.
Right.
You're not really thinking. You got a fucking team. You're go Raiders. Let's go Raiders. You're let's go Trump. Like, well, now this is not healthy. This is not a normal way to discuss super important issues. When Trump said today that, like, what's next? They're going to take down a statue of George Washington. It's like they took down a statue of Robert E. Lee and everybody's forgetting. What's next? We're going to take down a statue of George Washington? You're like, what?
Yeah, that's like when the word normalizing actually fits. Like all these things that have been so flooded, that is normalizing something terrible. But it's like
so crazy
you can't
that he
compare
thought that was an
George
okay thing to
fucking
say.
Washington with Robert E. Lee is actually a problem. But the left is like pointed out problems to the point where you can't have you don't trust your instincts right now.
Yeah.
Where you're like, if I say this, does this make me racist? It's like, what, that it's 80 degrees outside? How is that linked?
And also I think anybody coming in and deciding to do something is a problem. Like people coming in and deciding to take down a statue.
Yeah.
That statue's a symbol to a lot of people, and a lot of people step in and say, hey, this is it. I think there should be some sort of real, prolonged, intelligent conversation about what that statue means, and have it in a way where a bunch of people can see it, and have it represented on both sides. Have it represented by the side of people that think it's a good idea to keep it up, and have it represented on the side of someone who thinks it's a good idea to move on, and maybe we should take this thing and put it in some sort of a war museum.
Right.
And not having it represent the goddamn Confederate soldiers in the middle of this town that's not Confederate, okay? The war's gone. Because you're holding on to this idea that your team lost a battle and that there's an invading army that's in with you right now. No, we're all Americans, okay? This is old shit. 1860 shit, okay? Let it go, stupid. Let's take this down. And let's put up a goddamn glorious Kid Rock tattoo style eagle with a fucking flag behind it. Come on. You really love America? Let's take down the Robert E. Lee and put a hulking American eagle with a fucking flag blowing in the wind.
Just cash.
And then underneath it have a gigantic plaque of everybody that lost their lives in the last 2 wars over the last 20 years. Have that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is how it's being represented, too. Is it like a glorious statue, or is it just a relic of history? Because, I think the debate is...
have you seen it?
No.
I haven't either. Let's look at it. Find out what's the statue of Robert E. Lee that they were taking down. I'm curious.
Me too.
What if he was found out he was banging a slave? Oh, that's it? Torch-wielding protesters rally a Confederate statue. Yeah. Can we go large on that, buddy? Wow. That's a beautiful piece of art. Much like when you look at Genghis Khan, it's a beautiful piece of art. You look at some of the statues and things that they constructed from back in his day. You think about it, you go, wow, this was a guy at war.
Yeah, who killed 5% of the earth.
Yeah, something even crazier. I think he killed 10% of the world's population while he was alive.
Yeah, this is a tough one because it's because that is a rebel army who lost, so it should be taken down.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like,
but what do you do with it?
Then do the natives Americans tell people to take down Washington? Then you start getting in a battle of well, this person wronged my people. Well, this person, and then I see people with Che shirts from Urban Outfitters, and I'm like, that dude committed genocide to a lot of people, And it's like, at what point is it? With this one, I think that it's a valid argument to take it down because it was a rebel army a rebel army in the country that it's still in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, it's a slippery slope of erasing.
Right.
You know?
Well, I don't think you should have it in your state capital, wherever the fuck that is. Is that what it is? State Capitol building?
Oh, well, that's a no-brainer.
It represents...
Yeah, that's state.
Is that what it is? But see if you could pull it up again, just so we know what the fuck we're talking about. I think that was kind of like... I think it was like a state building. Like, it was a big deal.
That's how I felt about Confederate flag. I'm like, obviously take it off state buildings, justices.
Well, it's still a part of a few different flags.
Right. That to me crosses that line where you're like, oh, well, now you're incorporating it into the government that a lot of people associate with like valid social issues.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I think it's on Mississippi's.
That's very intense.
Yeah.
It's in Emancipation Park in front of the courthouse.
In front of the courthouse. Yeah. Wow. Man,
that sets a bit of a tone.
You can't do that. I mean, you got to get that guy out of there. Look, I think for sure we should keep it. I mean, I don't think they should destroy it. Just like I don't think they should destroy, you know, if there's a statue of Mao somewhere. I don't think they should destroy it. I think we should look at it and hold on to it so that future generations can look back and go, wow.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Like Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
Like there's little pieces to be like, that people fucking split the world in two at one point. And if we forget that, we start doing this live action role play until someone gets hit by a car. It's like...
Yeah. Well, we want better, right? So we want better, so we pretend that better already exists or is possible if we force people to behave the way we want.
Right.
You know, there's a bunch of different ways where people try to achieve better, you know, and they're not all smart. Because a lot of them are based on how you feel right now and what you want to change, so you try to be forceful. But like the bounce back thing we're talking about, it doesn't really work like that. When you push too hard at people and you don't respect them, even if they're as ridiculous as a white nationalist, when you push at them, and why do I say it's ridiculous if you're asking? Because it's all ridiculous. I think being a black nationalist is ridiculous too. I think it's all ridiculous. I think you should be a human being. And just because you enjoy black culture doesn't mean you have to be racist. You can enjoy Chinese people just as much. We can all just be cool with each other. But this idea that there's like one superior race is insane. We are all interconnected in some very bizarre way, and we help each other, and that's what culture is. That's what civilization is. The reason why it all works so well is that we're all intertwined with each other, learning from each other, trying to figure out how to navigate this thing together, competing with each other, improving upon whatever the fuck it is we're working on because of the competition from all sorts of different parts of the world, different cultures and behavior patterns and levels of aggression, levels of intellect, and all of us combined in some sort of a swarming soup of innovation and ideas and communication and trying to figure this thing out together. And as soon as you just lump it all up to white people only, like, get the fuck out of here with that old stupid idea. That's a stupid idea.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so anti-PC and cultural appropriation stuff, because those are the mechanisms to share. Yes. Where it's like, it's not because I'm white and I don't want people to get credit for whatever it's saying, how do we, you know, there's no quote that when goods stop going across borders, armies go across borders, where it's like, if culture's coming together and sharing and developing, and everything you just said is necessary for multiculturalism. And so if you say I can't wear a sombrero because I'm a white guy, even though I'm, you know,
stupid. As long as you're not being an asshole about it, you're just having fun. And what's the big deal?
And who needs that brim? White guys.
Yeah, pale as fuck.
Right. And
Mexicans have a nice dark complexion. They can handle it.
I know. Jews have no brim.
Dude, very good, very important point.
Mexicans and Jews should switch hats.
Well, some of the super Orthodox ones, they have the crazy brim, right?
Yeah, they're like cheese heads with fur.
Oh, that's a different one, right? That's a different one. That's a different kind of hat right there. I've seen that one. Yeah. That's a weird one.
It's like part of West Hollywood has a bunch of these hats.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about Hollywood. When you drive, there's certain neighborhoods you go down to that are all Orthodox Jews, or at least a high volume of them.
Yeah.
So you see them with the strings that hang down from their belt. Hello, freak bitches.
So I think there's that.
What?
But
That's
then
how
there's
Joe Rogan
also,
started this
you know, like the Colin Kaepernick thing. I think that probably cost a lot of ratings for the NFL.
Sure. There was that poll that came out that said, I think of the 12% of people who said that they were not watching NFL games last year, 28% of that 12% said that the Kaepernick national anthem thing was the reason.
Yeah, I mean,
So
some people,
percentage,
it probably emboldened them. They probably liked it and they wanted to watch it more.
This was fascinating about the cultural breakdown of the country. Basically, white people hated it and black people loved it. This is how the polls were. It was like 72% of black people thought it was great, and like an equal percentage of white people thought that it was just terrible. Which is a fascinating look at sort of how race relations work in the country at large. It's actually one of the reasons I think that ESPN's been losing ratings. Like, I used to watch ESPN religiously, and now I all I want is to just watch my sports and not be bothered with the politics. Right. Because I say I do that during the day, and it's a pet peeve of mine that every time I turn on ESPN, I have to lecture about Caitlyn Jenner or about Black Lives Matter. It's like, shut up. Caitlyn Jenner hasn't even been athletically relevant since before I was born. I was born in 1984.
Well, the Caitlyn Jenner piece, when they did it for ESPN, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the word was that her getting Athlete of the Year, or whatever the award was that she got.
It's like Hero of the Year. It's like the Hero of the Year award. Yeah.
Hero. Was directly tied to the exclusive interview with Diane Sawyer.
That makes sense.
They sold the two of them together as a package deal, which I buy 100%. If you don't, come on, think
you don't know
about
how
where
TV works if that's the case.
Where she came from. She's a fucking Kardashian, okay? She's a giant Kardashian.
That's right.
That's what she is. Now, notice I'm saying she.
You're saying she. I would say
very politically correct.
Yeah, I'm not.
But the video where they circled her house and she was like moving in the shadows behind the drapes. Did you ever see that?
No.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was like the first time she was revealing herself as this woman. So they're circling her house. She's this glorious house, and like looks like it's in Malibu or somewhere. Where they're circling the house and it's in the hills with a helicopter, like filming. It's like fucking high production value shit. Yeah. This isn't just like, hey, we met with Caitlyn at home. Caitlyn, tell us your troubles. Like Kristen Beck, the former Navy SEAL, who just sits down very reasonably and says, this just feels better for me. This is who I am.
Right.
No, there was like curtains and shadows, and it was mysterious. and then she starts talking, it's like, well, I've always been a man. Oh, God. And then there was the weirdest part, which is she got surgery, but it doesn't make me any. It wasn't like I was any less of a man or less of a woman before the surgery.
Right. Well, this is the case about gender, right?
Well, then why get the surgery? That was like.
There are a lot of questions as to the logic of all of this. Like, you call Caitlyn Jenner she. Caitlyn Jenner is a biological man.
I'm triggered.
Sorry to break this to all the people who listen to your show. Caitlyn Jenner's. I had a tweet this week.
All the people that listen probably agree with you.
Yeah,
at least a good amount do.
The #1 retweeted tweet I've ever had had 100, and I tweeted I think a day ago, and it has 120,000 likes. And there was a headline from CNN that said transgender man gives birth to it was transgender man assigned the female sex at birth, gives birth to healthy baby boy. And so I tweeted, woman gives birth to boy.
Right.
Because it's a woman. I mean, this is like, that's not a headline. I'm sorry. Like, just because the woman believes she's a man doesn't make her a man. Like, biology still exists. Sex still exists. If you want to say she's a woman who feels like a man, that's fine. If you want to say that, and by the way, I don't even care if she gets hormone treatments or if she wants to have surgery. Like, it's a free country. Do what the hell you want. But when you start insisting that I just throw biology out the window, I don't understand why that's any better than I, as a religious person, saying every time you say something, you have to mention God.
Right.
Like, well, I don't have the right to do that to you. Like, well, that's idiotic.
Are you fascinated by it? Are you fascinated by the transgender,
I'm fascinated by the society's obsession with it.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
There's not just an obsession. It's compulsory and it's rabid.
So I think that there's a couple of things that are going on. One is that it's very dark, but I think that there is an element of like, this is different, and we get to revel in the weirdness of it. But we're gonna pretend that it's all about the civil rights of it, right? We're gonna feel like special because we're on their side, right? We're not watching Caitlyn Jenner because it's a curiosity and because it's weird and entertaining. We're doing it because we're on Caitlyn Jenner's side.
But there've been trans people forever.
Yeah, right. I mean, Renee Richards was a trans person,
yeah, right? I mean, but it's happened throughout history. I mean, there's what was I reading a couple of days ago about a Roman, like, there was something about
reports of some trans soldier in the Roman army, you know, more than 1,000 years ago. It's got to be, if it exists now and it's existed before it was popular.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be a lot of people that turn trans now just because it's exciting. Oh, there it is, right there. A trans soldier in the ancient Roman army.
That wouldn't.
Of course.
It wouldn't be surprising.
I'm not shocked.
No,
I'm not shocked.
I mean, it's a condition. I mean,
Right.
the
Something
DSM called
going
it gender identity disorder, and then they called it gender dysphoria. It's a condition. I mean, like, I'm not saying conditions don't exist.
Dysphoria, but that in a lot of people's mind is labeling it somehow or a negative.
Well, I mean, it is highly linked to suicidality. There's a 40% lifetime suicide rate for people who have this particular gender disorder. That seems to me not to be like great positive.
Whether or not they transition, yeah.
Whether or not they transition, yeah. I mean, and again, I don't care if you transition, do what you want to do, but the idea that we as an entire society have to redefine what sex is, and we have to blind ourselves to what biology is, this is something I'm not willing to do. I think that it's actually damaging to kids, particularly.
I'm more than willing to call her a she, and change, but you can only change your name once.
I'm willing to call Caitlyn Jenner Caitlyn Jenner. I'm not willing to call Caitlyn Jenner a she.
Oh.
Because you can't change your sex. You can change your name.
Right.
You can change your name to whatever you want. I don't care. But you can't. Caitlyn Jenner is not a chicken. Caitlyn Jenner is not a woman. Caitlyn Jenner is a man, a biological man. And if a man lost his penis and you know in a tragic accident, it wouldn't make him a woman. And if he were born with high doses of estrogen in his bloodstream, he would also not be a woman.
Right.
You're determined by your chromosomes. And this is not even talking about intersex people. Like, intersex is an actual status. Intersex is a biological status. But this nonsense that if you, Joe Rogan, decide tomorrow that you are a woman, no surgeries, no hormone, nothing. You just tomorrow, you wake up and not decide, but you feel like a woman. Then you have always been a woman. We must treat you as a woman.
Yeah.
You don't have to change anything about yourself for us to even determine whether you're a woman. We just, like, no. I'm sorry, no. I mean, like, I had mental illness. I had a grandfather. I get so much shit for this. But this is not me being unsympathetic to people who suffer from a condition that is really tragic and obviously harms people. You know, in terms of the rates of suicide and depression are astounding. My grandfather was a bipolar schizophrenic, and it would have not been good for him or my family if people had said to him, Nate, you're right. The radio is talking to you. Nate, you're right. The curtains are talking to you. They put him in a mental hospital, they gave him lithium, and then he was better, and he could actually live a normal, relatively happy life. There's no good treatment for gender identity disorder, gender dysphoria, whatever you want to call it, but to suggest that it is a condition that doesn't require treatment, that really it's just that you're actually brain female, again, this is ascientific. There's no scientific evidence to back this whatsoever. Even these studies that have been done talking about there's a female brain and a male brain, first of all, if you say this to a feminist, you're a sexist. Right? If you say to a feminist, there's a female brain and a male brain, and the male brain works differently than the female brain, the feminist will look at you like, how dare you?
Well, it's also one of the rare times where you're allowed to celebrate classic definitions of female beauty when a man embraces them when he becomes a woman. Lipstick, high heels, short skirt. This is like not sexist.
Caitlyn Jenner was only a woman when Caitlyn Jenner was on the cover of Vanity Fair and Bustier. Right?
Yeah.
But if he had just said, listen, I look exactly the same as I did yesterday, but I'm a woman.
Yeah, if he got a short haircut and dressed like Billie Jean King.
Right, it's the reason why the media loves Laverne Cox, because Laverne Cox has had surgeries and looks a lot like a woman. So
I don't know who Laverne Cox is.
The guy from, the transgender woman from Orange is the New Black.
I never watched that show.
I've never watched that show either, but she's on the cover of Time Magazine.
Oh.
Or he's on the cover of Time Magazine.
Well, there was the woman in that show. Isn't that the one where the girl, is that the girl?
That's Laverne Cox.
Okay, that's a woman or man?
That's a man.
It used to be a man.
It used to be a man.
It's a woman now. Very tricky.
No, it's still a man, but
transgender. Tipping point. I'm so out of the loop. I'm that old man. Who
Well,
always
look
wondered.
at that headline there, right? It says America's next civil rights frontier, and that's the key. You have a bunch of people in the United States who are suggesting that they want the next civil rights fight. Always the next civil rights fight, right?
Yeah.
So the civil rights fight is immigration, or the civil rights fight is gay marriage, or the civil rights fight is transgenders. Okay, how about this? How about there was only one real civil rights fight, and it was about black people who had been historically oppressed in the United States for 200 years.
There had been slaves.
Yes, who had been slaves, and then Jim Crow.
Nobody's owning transgenders.
This is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, the worst that Caitlyn Jenner had experienced was being incredibly wealthy in a high net
Whoa,
worth suburb.
I can't believe-
It's not to say that transgender people aren't discriminated against in some areas.
And that's what
of
civil
America. I'm
rights
sure
is
that's
for.
true.
But like
But it's
now
also-
they use civil rights for
behavior
everything.
is not the same as being born black or being born Asian or being born with, disabled. Like, if I'm a business owner and I hire you and you're a man and you come in the next day and you're dressed in a woman's clothing saying you're a woman but you still have a full beard, like I don't see why I as a business owner am expected to eat the cost of that. Like that seems bizarre to me.
Eat the cost is a great way to phrase it. I didn't have a dog in this fight. I was completely open and liberal about it until there was a case where a man who had been a man for 30 years became a woman for a little less than 2 years and then started MMA fighting women.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Beating the fuck out of these women and not proclaiming that he or she used to be a man because in quotes, it was a medical condition that I did not need to disclose. Like, that's not a fucking medical condition.
Right.
And if you ever watch the fights, she
like
wasn't
is
winning.
this Fallon Fox?
Yes.
Yeah.
She wasn't winning because she was skillful. She was fucking manhandling these women. It was ugly.
Of course.
It was horrible.
Of course. Like, this is, but again, it's so funny how the transgender movement destroys the feminist movement by living off of the sort of lies that the feminist movement promulgated. So the feminist movement said stupid things like women and men, equally athletic proficient.
Well, that's
and
something
that's
that
not
has
true.
been repeated very recently, that there's no biological difference in the genders and it's all social.
Absolute horseshit. I mean, I'm
Total
just sorry.
horseshit.
There's no scientific evidence to back that, and it's particularly true with regard to actual physical capacity. This is just nonsense.
Not just no scientific evidence, but a
Counter-
mountain. Yeah.
I mean,
mountain of it.
My favorite study on this is, you remember there was those commercials about like throwing like a girl, running like a girl. Right. It's only society that has forced the little girl to run like a woman. First of all, I have a 3-year-old girl. She runs like a girl. Second of all, and it's not because I'm teaching her. It's not because her mom runs, because she doesn't, right? But
does she play with dolls because you're a sexist pig?
It's because of that. My daughter started off liking trucks like in the first year, and I didn't give a shit. And now she likes playing with dolls and dressing up in princess dresses. Like, who cares? She's a girl. She's always been a girl. She'll always be a girl, whether she likes trucks or whether she likes dresses.
Yeah, that was an issue with one of my daughters too. My daughter was a little worried about her. I go, she's gonna be a dyke. She's like, no. I go, what's the big deal? You like lesbians? Who cares? I don't care. I'm like, I do not care. And she's like, and then she turned the corner, and then but we just let her be whatever she's in. But she was really into like Batman for a while.
Yeah, my daughter is into Batman, and then she was into Wonder Woman. Like, who cares? But what's funny about this is that the left kept saying, even when I met my wife, right, who's a conservative, and I made her more conservative when we got married because that's what men tend to do to their wives. But she I remember early on we had a conversation about this, and I said, women don't throw like men. And she got like all offended, and I said, but that's factually true. She said, right, but it's insulting. It's like, no, that's factually true. Like, I'm sorry, there have been studies. Out of 1,000, if you took a woman throwing a baseball and then 1,000 men throwing a baseball, the woman will throw faster than out of those 1,000 men, this is in the book The Sports Gene, the woman will throw faster than 2 of those men out of 1,000. And we're not talking about like Goose Gossage here. We're talking about like
regular humans.
We're talking about the accountant from down the block. We're talking about Paul Ryan flinging a baseball.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's not the way this stuff works.
Well, that was the counter that Fallon Fox used, was that she actually lost to a woman. She lost to a woman named Ashley Evans Smith. But what I said was, no, this proves my point, is that you're not good. You're just a man.
Well, this was, John McEnroe got slapped up.
What do I care? Yeah, I don't know. Just letting the Joe Rogan show play on. Yeah, he brings up a lot of interesting guests and a lot of varied topics, should we say. You know? Oh, crap. I just got some... Damn. Really? I got that thinner on the PlayStation. Alright, guys. Whoa, almost at 3 hours. Freak bitches. Yeah, I'm about to close the stream for a minute. I'll probably grab me a little breakfast or something. What did I just do with the controller? Oh. And get on some games for a little minute, yo. So, peace. Until next time.